Hello everyone, welcome to the second edition of the Engineering Software License Management Conference. This is an event for all software asset managers, IT managers, project managers, and everyone who is dealing with license management of engineering applications. My name is Veronica, I'm VP Marketing at OpenLM, the company that hosts this event every year, which serves as a platform for all specialists and professionals in engineering license management. We are happy to learn that we have more than 400 registrants for this event from all over the world, from different companies like automotive, engineering, medical technology, aerospace, and so on. We hope that this event will help you to learn more about license management, to optimize your license management, while you provide the necessary licenses to the engineers in your company. I would like to go through the agenda now. Okay, so today we're gonna have Stefan Ritter and Jonas Meder from Secoptena, a longtime partner of OpenLM. They will have a presentation about PTC Windchill, in particular about license types and how to manage them. Our second presentation comes from Daniel Tsunaki from BorgWarner, who will give us a presentation about Reporting Hub and how to optimize licensing using customized reports. We're gonna have a coffee break afterwards with a poll, so we invite everyone to participate to this poll. Our keynote speaker is Evan Orgel from ServiceNow. He will be providing us insights about item challenges and ways to get ahead. Evan will join us for the panel discussions, along with all the speakers and our colleagues from OpenLM. Afterwards, we're gonna have another short break, and after the short break, Brian McAleer from Dynetics will provide us insight on the way he managed to optimize license and reduce cost, while is increase availability of the licenses in the company. So we hope this event will provide more information to you and will be useful for all the participants. I'm honored to invite now Oren Gabay, OpenLM CEO and co-founder, to open the event. Thank you. Oren, please.
Hello, Veronica. Hello, everyone. I wish to welcome you all to the second meeting of our Engineering License Management Conference. We started this tradition in 2020 for the first time, and today we are holding the second meeting. I'm very pleased to see that many of you that have been with us on the first meeting chose to be here with us also today. My name is Oren Gabay, and I am CEO and co-founder of OpenLM. I'm thrilled to be here today with you. As we promised, most of the presentation you will see today are given by people like you who are dealing with the challenge of providing their engineers access to the engineering tools they need while optimizing the investment in expensive software. I would like to take this opportunity to tell you about a new paper recently published by Gartner. The paper named Market Guide for Software Asset Management Tool is currently available for purchase. So why am I telling you about this paper? I promise you we're not getting any commission. Typically, engineering licensing is never directly covered by Gartner. Sometimes it might be mentioned as a side note in a report about software asset management that is focusing on traditional SAM management. In this report, and for the first time, Gartner is acknowledging the existence of engineering license. They even name it engineering and specialty software. Our field is mentioned side by side along with traditional SAM tools and SAM tools for SAP. I think this is a significant step forward putting engineering license management in the front, and I hope that Gartner will decide to publish a whole review on engineering license management tools as they do for traditional SAM tools. During the drafting of the paper by Gartner, we were available to answer questions that might come up. There was one question I would like to share with you. The Gartner analyst asked the following question. A traditional SAM software provider claims that they can support engineering licensing by monitoring the executable running on the end user workstation. What do you think? Is it possible? This demonstrates the chasm between the two disciplines. I'm sure you know the answer to this question, but let me share part of my response. To start with, as we all know, in engineering software, the same executable may pull different features. It might also consume more than one feature, which is the case in many cases. And by monitoring the executable, you don't even see that. Second, in big organizations, there are multiple license servers. A workstation might pull a license from one of multiple license servers configured in the licensing path. By monitoring the executable, we can't know which feature is consumed and from which license server. Third, token licenses is utilized by many engineering software application vendors. There are multiple implementations that might consume token based on time, functionality, and other parameters. This is completely hidden when you monitor the exec. Four, when using hybrid licensing, which is very popular today, for the same software, some users might have named licenses and some might consume a network license. How can you know which license is consumed by monitoring the exec? I can continue on, but Veronica will not let me. So I will just mention in titles. Multiple license pools, token licenses, license allocation by options file, license borrowing, cascading sequence, and more. None of these can be monitored measuring the exec activity. Right, we in OpenLM also monitor the executable on the end user workstation in some cases, but we understand that we can only use this information in order to augment the session data. I assume we can all agree that management of engineering licensing is more complex compared to traditional SAM license. This is the hard part of the equation where we must be more professional and knowledgeable. We also need to work hard and fight the strong forces in the organization that don't really care. The bright side is that when managed correctly, the benefit to your organization can be significantly higher compared to efforts to invest in the same efforts in traditional SAM. In the last 2 decades, I've been working with outstanding people that took the lead and managed to significantly better support their engineers that need to access the engineering tools. And you will see one very good example today. I would like to share a thought with you. Think about what we are doing in traditional SAM management versus the engineering part. Traditional SAM is mainly concerned with compliance, being ready for vendor auditing, counting the installation and comparing it to the licensing. On the other side, engineering license management is all about the core activity of an engineering organization, understanding the specific needs of each department, engineer, and research team. What are the tools they are utilizing? Are there any alternatives? Can we harvest some alter licenses? Can we do some remote processing on servers, HPC? How can we make license allocation more dynamic? How can we provide services all around the world so each engineer will be able to get the needed license with minimal delay? It's not by chance that many of the engineering license managers, our customers that we are serving, are coming to this position after a long engineering career. I'm very excited to be here with you today, and me and the whole OpenLM team are looking forward to communicating with you. Regardless of the software tool you may be using, can be FlexNet for engineering application, OpenLM, or homemade solution. I invite you to communicate with us. And I invite more people to step forward on the stage and present your work and vision. It will contribute both to you personally and to your organizations. We are having events throughout the year, and we can host your article, your implementation story, or presentation, whatever you wish. So I'm looking forward to enjoy the sessions with you today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Oren. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite Stefan and Jonas from Secoptena, longtime partners of OpenLM. Their presentation will be focused on PTC Windchill, their licensing models, and the way to optimize them. Stefan and Jonas, please.
Thank you very much, Veronica. Thank you very much, Oren, giving us the opportunity to speak here. I will have a very short part in this presentation, just introducing how we see OpenLM and as a highly flexible standard software and the options we have there. Giving a short introduction who we are and what we are doing, and then Jonas will take over and give you the example how to integrate Windchill in OpenLM. Just one slide to our company. We are Secoptena GmbH. We are located in Germany, in Starnberg. This is in the Munich area. We are founded 2011, and we are looking for a distribution of a software license management tool, and we also did evaluations for other tools, and then we decided to ask OpenLM, and since 2011, OpenLM also decided to partner with us. We are the exclusive distributor and service provider for OpenLM in Germany and Austria. We meanwhile care about 200 customers in our territory. We are doing that by directly selling OpenLM, but we also manage.
Excuse me, Stefan, I'm sorry. Did you share the screen? Because we don't see it. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, and I will take this opportunity to ask everyone who have questions to write them in the Q&A box. At the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A box, so please write your questions related to the presentation here. Thank you.
So sorry for that. I have to hurry up now. So this was the introduction slide, and this is a slide about our company Secoptena. So as I said, we are founded in 2011, and since then we are exclusive distributor and service provider for OpenLM in Germany and Austria. We also have partners and resellers working together with us in the territory, and we acquired about 200 customers since then. We are actually a team of 8 people, and we are providing software sales, we are providing first level support, and we are providing consultancy. And in addition, meanwhile, we provide software development of extensions to OpenLM. I'll go a little bit deeper into that, but all we do is specialized on network license management, mainly of engineering licenses. Standard software. What is OpenLM? What is the definition of a standard software in contradiction to individual software or self-developed systems? Standard software covers a clearly defined scope of application, and it is made available to be purchased as an out-of-the-box product. So it's not individual software, it's standard out of the box. The advantages of standard software, in this case of OpenLM. So if you have newly implemented functionality for release, this is available for all maintenance customers. Necessary adjustments are implemented centrally. So the effort to development is only done by OpenLM, and everybody can consume the new functionality. And this is done by collecting centrally the know-how, and OpenLM also provides a centralized and standardized data collection. Not every tool stores its own usage data. It's all stored in OpenLM, and we can use the same monitoring and reporting UI for all monitored systems, independent from the connected license management systems. There are a few potential disadvantages of standard software. So standard software, and we see that in the market, never 100% adjusts to the customer requirements. That is not possible, but we can show how this can be covered. Adjustments are only done if the business case fits. So if we have a real complex requirement from a customer, this can not be done out of the box for every other customer. And the implementation of innovation sometimes is delayed because we need another major release for new functionality. But the answer on these possible disadvantages is OpenLM as highly flexible standard software, so it's very open. The first thing in the flexibility is a license model. OpenLM has a very scalable license model. This fits from small engineering companies, we know this from our customer base, up to multinational industry groups. This can scale by number of users. This can scale by number of monitored products. This can scale by number of OpenLM extensions. OpenLM is very modular from the licensing, so some functionality can be licensed or not. This depends on the requirements of the customers. And the implementation of customer requirements, and we now have 10 years of experience about that. Typically, we address this, we get the requirement to support, and then we hand over to OpenLM and we work together with the customer. And then many features, meanwhile, in the last 10 years have been implemented based on such customer requirements, improvements of the user interface, newly and modified reports, adjustments of the standard extensions like the advanced alerts. We got a lot new functionality there, the allocation manager, the active agent functionality, and the roles and permissions extension also had been upgraded over the time, and all based on customer requirements. The second step is the possibility of individual integration of OpenLM into the customer's business processes. This is mainly done by the utilization of the OpenLM API. So we can create individual data output or data export, which is used by customers, for example, for license usage billing or for budgeting. We can create individual monitoring by accessing all this license usage information via the API and probably exposing this in own intranet solutions. And we can get control about the OpenLM functionality. The user interface functionality of OpenLM can all be triggered via the API, so we can remote control OpenLM. And we can create an individual reporting. The OpenLM Reporting Hub, in combination with business intelligence tools like MS Power BI, can integrate different data sources besides OpenLM data, can create management reports, can create schedule reports, and Daniel, I think, will show us more about what this can be done. The third step of flexibility is integration of new license server types. This is done in steps, and we always need the customer support. And I think when we started with OpenLM more than 10 years ago, we had, let's say, a handful of 10, 15 license servers supported. Meanwhile, it's more than 60, and these all be done by customer requirements. The first check is, if we get a requirement like that, which data sources are available from the license servers? Do we get a status output from the command line? Can we read logs? Do we have access to HTML pages? Do we have an API? We need information, otherwise we cannot integrate. Then the second step check is what the data is available from which source. Do we get feature names, product names, versions, license expiration date, username, workstation name, start time of session? All this information is needed, otherwise we have no useful information which we can then transform to OpenLM and store that in the OpenLM database. The next step of check, obviously, is the business case. Is this an individual request or a broad market potential? What are the customer priorities? What is the estimated implementation effort? So this has to be a business case, otherwise it makes no sense to adopt that to a standard software. And then we need a decision to implement. Typically, OpenLM is implementing that. And then if such a license manager support is included in OpenLM, it's included in the maintenance plan. If for any reason this does not happen, service providers like Secoptena can do that, either as a consulting service only for this company, or as a product extension, including a maintenance plan. The third possibility is the customer can do it by himself. This also happens in our customer base. And also very important always is in the decision phase, what is the timeline? When do we need the solution? We already have existing license server type integrations. We did that from Secoptena. We can support integration of Citrix Zen Desktop. We have MELS. It's a pretty old license management system, but for some companies very interesting. It's a license manager for PTC Creo Elements Direct, the former co-create, and we created support for Polarion. And now what is coming is Windchill, and Jonas will take over then and show you how we did that. So as a conclusion, OpenLM is a highly flexible standard software which can be adopted to the customer requirements. The license model is flexible, the data output is flexible, the integration is flexible. It's flexible regarding functionality and user interface and regarding the data sources. This in very few minutes. I'm handing over now to Jonas Meder. And if you have questions about some things, please put that in the Q&A panel, and then we can answer in after Jonas has presented the Windchill solution. Jonas, if you can share your screen, please.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Stefan. I'm going to present you an example project that shows very good how flexible OpenLM is in terms of data sources. In this particular project that we are realizing for one of our bigger customers at the moment, we wanted to connect PTC Windchill to OpenLM in order to enable reporting for license utilization. It required a little extra effort, but it was worth it. So the result was quite good. So let me show it to you. Windchill is a product lifecycle management software. PLM software, for those who are not very familiar with it, is a very important component in manufacturing companies, especially. It is used to host product data, and therefore they need it through the whole process. It starts with product planning and product development, then over.
Jonas, are you sharing? Sorry.
Production planning. Yes, I am.
We cannot see it, Jonas.
No.
Sorry.
Okay.
Oh,
we get it. Thanks.
Okay. You didn't miss much. So this is the first slide. So PLM software is used in a lot of departments in big companies, and therefore you always have a large user base. And combined with expensive license costs, that means that these systems are very expensive. So there is a lot of money behind that. And strangely, with Windchill was that in earlier versions, they did not provide much information about license utilization. It was very intransparent. And the customer who wanted to start this project with us, they told us it was like a gentleman's agreement, but over 7-digit payments, yearly payments. So this is very unusual and many customers had an increasing demand for transparency. So PTC, I imagine they got some pressure. And starting with version 11, they released some interesting new features that enabled us to start this project. First of all, they introduced a new license type, while in earlier versions, there was only the named user license. Beginning with version 11, there was an active daily user license introduced. It is kind of a floating license. Not exactly, I will explain on the next slide how it works, but it works kind of like a floating license. And in addition to that, we got the license report. It is an HTML-based or XML-based report that I'm also going to show on the next slides. Besides that, there's not so much, not so many useful tools in terms of license management. On the left side, you see the Windchill architecture. We have a Windchill server, and there's no license manager in here. It is somewhere embedded in the Windchill server, but it is hidden pretty good. So we've been told it is a FlexNet embedded, probably. I'm not completely sure about that because we really cannot see anything about it. There are no interfaces that we would typically query with OpenLM. The only interface that we had was the web server. Windchill has a web server, and through this web server, also the most clients connect. On the client tier, you do not have any applications. This could have also been a solution because OpenLM can monitor client applications if there are any. But if users are using the web browser, it does not make much sense to monitor anything here. So we really were left with the web browser, and we're trying to find a solution how to integrate it into OpenLM. The license model, let's go through it very quickly. We have these two license models. The active daily user license can be shared between several users, but once a user uses this license, it is blocked for the rest of the day. And this calculation is based on GMT. So no matter where the server is or where your users are, when a user uses a license, it is blocked until midnight GMT, and then it is given back to the server. And then the next day, another user might come and use the same license. So this is how active daily user licenses work. The named user license is pretty standard. It can be, or it must be assigned to a user, and then the user can use it. And you can only assign as many users as you have named user licenses. These are our two license models. In the Windchill Web UI, we have a good overview about them. So here we see a lot of information that we also know from OpenLM. We have the license names, so you know which products you have. License type, very important. We have these named user licenses, and in this case, our customer also had a few of these active daily user licenses. You have the total quantity of them and the available quantity. This column looks interesting, but it is not so much because available in this case means it is not assigned. So the web interface only shows you how many licenses you have not assigned. It does not give you any information about whether these licenses are actually being used or not. So there's room for improvement. And finally, we have the expiration date, also very important information. So this can be gathered from the Windchill web interface. And in addition to that, there is the previously mentioned licensing report. It looks like this. You can generate it through the web interface. There is an HTML form that you have to use to give it a time period. So this report is designed to be created over a larger time period. Not so good for OpenLM because OpenLM usually queries only information, what is happening right now, and it does it every minute. But at least we have this report. It is an historic report, but we have some information here. If you generate this, you will get an HTML document and an XML file. Both have the same content in different structures. It starts with some general information, which is in our case pretty useless. We did not do anything with that. But we get also the license overview that you've already seen from the web interface. It is the same information here. Now we had it in HTML and in XML form. So this was pretty useful. And we have finally some information about license usage. There were two sections, one for named user licenses and another section for the active daily user licenses. Both have the exact same structure, the same columns. We have a user ID, and then we see a first access date and a most recent access date. Here's already a weakness because we only see dates. There are no precise timestamps, so very unprecise information. And if you generate it over a larger time frame, there's not so much that you can read out of that. Then you see the license that has been used by this user and the usage count, so how often this license has been used during the selected time frame. Another weakness was when a user used more than one license within the time frame, as you can see here. You still have only one first access and one most recent access date, but you don't know for which license. So for example, we know that this user has been doing something on the 27th of May, but we don't know whether he or she was using the mechanical design license or the author license. It does not give this information. So very unprecise, no timestamps. And another weakness was our customer had a multi-server environment. so several Windchill servers, but this report can only be generated for one server. So how do you identify unique users? Because you have to license each user only once, even if the user is using several Windchill servers. But how to identify the unique users? With this tool, you had to generate several reports and then compare them manually. And there are thousands of users in it. So it's all a little bit, yeah, not really perfect. This is what we had. Now let me explain what we usually do when we integrate something into OpenLM. There are several ways, but the component that always collects information is the OpenLM Broker. Typically, you will install it on your license server, and it will query several sources of information. This can be files like log files or license files. Stefan already explained most of it. You can use command line tools like lmutil for FlexLM or any other kinds of APIs that a license manager may offer. Then OpenLM will query these sources of information every minute and send it to OpenLM server, where it is then stored for later reporting. OpenLM Broker by default supports now over 50 different license managers. And if you have one, like in the case of Windchill, that is not compatible yet, you can connect it as the so-called OpenLM generic type. Here's a link to OpenLM website where you can find a specification about that. It means you can deliver OpenLM Broker a standardized file format, or a file that is in this standardized format. OpenLM Broker will understand it and then give the information to OpenLM server. In detail, it looks like this. So if we install OpenLM Broker and want to do this, then in this case, we use the data in query command. In my opinion, the most important way of OpenLM Broker to get some information, and you can configure it. This command will be executed each minute, and OpenLM Broker expects a format or a response in the OpenLM generic format. And you can put anything here. In this case, we used a command line. So this is our command. We just open a command line. Then the type command will print the content of a file, and we give it an XML file that we have previously generated with our software. So this is how we get it into OpenLM. You can test that by hitting the execute button, and it should look like this. So this command returns the content of our file, and the structure is in this OpenLM generic XML format. You see that we have a server element here, and we have some features. This is our license inventory, and we have some users. If you want to know more about that, follow the link, check OpenLM website. There it is explained in more detail. This is how we get information into OpenLM. Now, what does it mean for Windchill? We're starting here. We have our HTML report that I've already explained, and we needed to get here. The first challenge was, how can we transfer this kind of information into the OpenLM generic XML format? This was the easiest part. We decided to program a software that is installed as a Windows service, and it has an integrated scheduler. The scheduler can be executed each minute and is supposed to extract this information from a defined source and translate it into the OpenLM XML format. This was the easy part. Now, the next question was, what about this information? Is it really enough? Do we get enough information in order to have benefits from reporting with OpenLM? It was really unclear due to these weaknesses that I told you about, missing timestamps and unprecise information and so on. So we decided to do a proof of concept by reading these reports that we generated manually and reading them and feeding them to OpenLM, just as a proof of concept to see if the result was good. We created these reports manually, and the result was good. So if we did this a few times a day, we already had pretty nice information in OpenLM and could create some basic reports. So the answer was yes, the information is enough. Now the biggest problem was, how do we generate it automatically? I showed you this web interface that has an HTML form that you need to use in order to generate it. And this would have been a very bad approach, because programming something to automatically generate something through an HTML form is very messy. It is a bad programming. You need to be tricky, and the final solution will always be error prone and not really reliable. And furthermore, it was really slow, because generating these reports, when you hit the generate button, you had to wait up to a minute or even longer until you get a result. And this was way too slow for OpenLM. We needed this information every minute, so it cannot take longer than a minute. So this was the hardest challenge. And in order to solve it, we started a technical investigation. We had some meetings also with PTC technicians. Our customer helped us to get some information from them. And finally, we found our solution, which was the Windchill REST API. REST APIs are just nice. They are reliable, they are fast, and they are easy to use. OpenLM has one too. And for a reason, everybody is going for REST APIs nowadays. This Windchill REST API is special because it is customizable. You get out of the box a bunch of methods that you can use. There was none about license information, but it was possible to create one. So we ended up creating two methods. One of them, a license feature was called, gave us information about the license inventory, so what we saw earlier with license name, quantity, license type, and so on. And the other method gave us some information about license usage. The response that we get from these methods is in JSON format, which is a very good format in order to process it later with the software. And the content was exactly the same as in the HTML form. The biggest difference was that while the HTML form needed over a minute sometimes to be created, with these REST methods, we got a response in less than 1 second. So it was fast enough. And now we had our final part of the piece of the puzzle, and we could start implementation and create the final solution. We ended up with this data flow. On the left side, you have PTC Windchill with the REST API. And we programmed a software that we called SC Connector PTC Windchill. As I said, it is installed as a Windows service. You can configure it, and it will run then and usually start every minute querying the Windchill REST API, get a few responses in JSON format, and this JSON response is then processed by our software and translated into the OpenLM generic XML format. We write this to a file, and by the way, this whole process from querying the Windchill API, translating JSON into XML, and writing the result to a file took about half a second in our test that is running at the moment. This test is running on a production server, so we have thousands of users. It is real life conditions, and it is really, really fast. So the first test results are very good. Now with this file that is updated every minute, OpenLM Broker can now use the data inquiry command to print the content of the file, read it, and then process it, send it to OpenLM server. So this is the technical workflow. And now let me show you some test results. In OpenLM, it looks like this. We have our Windchill server, just like any other license server. The type will be OpenLM generic, unlike FlexLM, for example, for other tools. We see the uptime of the server, the license quantity, the licenses that are currently being used, just like for any other license server. The license inventory looks like this. We have our feature names. This is also a nice touch in PTC Windchill that we get very speaking names. You will know from some other vendors that the license names are maybe numbers or something that nobody can really understand unless he's an experienced user. In this case, we get very good license names. We have the license types, named user licenses. The active daily user licenses are called floating in OpenLM. And we have the total quantity, of course. Now it gets interesting. We have the use column, and this is not the same information as we know from the Windchill web interface, because as I explained, the web interface of Windchill only shows us how many licenses we have assigned. But we want to know whether assigned licenses are really being used. And this is what we see here. These numbers are calculated on the minute-by-minute data inquiries and the response that we get from the Windchill API. So this is real usage. It could be that a lot more licenses are assigned, but here we see how many are actually used. License procurement is another report in OpenLM that shows us mainly the license expiration. This was also possible with the information we got from the REST API. And we have the expiration dates, and you can use them in order to create alerts, for example, and be notified before a license expires. License activity, maybe the most detailed report in Windchill, in OpenLM. It shows us every license session that's going on our Windchill server. We have the username, the server and feature, of course, and we have a start time. This was not possible in Windchill. We only had the dates, but because we query this information once a minute, we know we know quite precisely when the session started. We do not know the exact second, but at least in which minute the session started. And so therefore we are able to add these exact timestamps. For example, if the query at 2:30 did not include this user, the next query at 2:31 had this user for the first time, so we know that the session started here. And the end time, of course. We know that these licenses are given back at midnight GMT, so the next query 30 seconds after midnight did not have any of these users, and therefore OpenLM decides, okay, the session ended here. So we have precise timestamps. And this enables you to do some more calculations, like you can group by users and now identify your heavy users or those users who are not really using an assigned license. This is very important because licenses that are assigned but not used will cost unnecessarily money. License usage report also works. It shows the historic utilization. For active daily user licenses, we did expect something like this. So our users are located all over the globe and working in different time zones. So during 24 hours, we see increasing license usage. And at midnight GMT, the usage drops to 0. And this repeats every day. This is just how these active daily user licenses work. And each day you have a peak. This graph, by the way, is aggregated hourly, so we only have one measure point per hour. And here we see that at 11 p.m. GMT, the usage level was at 2,484. And then it dropped to 0 again. By the way, here we had a small drop in license usage. This is not normal. This was a software update. We are in testing phase, and we figured that our counting is not precise enough. There was a minor error that we figured only during live testing. So we made an update, and after updating our software, we had some drops here. So the final product will not show something like this, of course. This is for active daily user licenses. You can do the same thing for named user licenses. If you do it, I would recommend to choose a different aggregation. The license usage report in OpenLM lets you choose that. So you can decide to have it hourly, but it does not make much sense in terms of named user licenses. Named user licenses, you want to know the number of unique users. So you can choose daily aggregation, like in this example. Then you have one measure point per day. And each day you see the highest peak of named users, unique named users. For example, on the 1st of October, we have had 2,021 unique named users. When you have more historic data, it would make sense, for example, to have a monthly aggregation and then see for each month over a larger time frame how many unique users you needed, or how many unique users were using named user licenses. So let's summarize. As I showed, we are already able to achieve a precise counting of the required named users and also of the active daily users. And this was our main goal. So we already achieved it. The historic reporting with OpenLM is a lot more detailed than we had it with Windchill. And this gives our customer a very good information for the next negotiations with Windchill. It is no longer a gentleman's agreement. They can now say very precisely how many licenses they needed in the past, and then do a forecast for the future requirements. And some further benefits are they can assign licenses that are assigned, but identify licenses that are assigned but not used, very important. And in their multi-server environment, they are able to determine the number of unique users, because unlike Windchill, when they have all their production servers, all their Windchill servers in OpenLM, they could very easily generate one report over all these servers and then see the number of unique users among all their servers. Also a big advantage in this case. Yeah, and what else could we do? We could create alerts now and maybe notify if the server is not available or before licenses are expiring. This is nice to have, probably not that important in case of Windchill. We haven't tested it yet, but it should work. And another idea that we have is maybe about these active daily user licenses. I explained to you how they work. You always block the license for the rest of the day, and it can happen if a user starts working 1 minute before midnight, and then crosses midnight, the license will be blocked another 24 hours. Now, if the user is idle, and we would be able to determine that, we could close the session before midnight, and this way avoid another day of license usage. We do already something very similar with Autodesk Token Flex, which has a similar license model. So if we would be able to monitor idle times in the case of Windchill, we could also realize something like that. So these are just ideas for the future. Okay, thanks a lot. So this was all from my side. Let's see if we have some questions.
Thank you very much, Jonas and Stefan. We have some questions here, so we're going to start a Q&A session. So the first question is from Robert. Is the Windchill Into up to date with Windchill 12?
I expected that question, but anyway, I cannot answer it. The customer that we are working with at the moment does not use Windchill version 12. We have another customer that is interested, and they have Windchill version 12, so this will be the next task. But currently, I cannot answer it.
Okay, so the second question comes from Oliver. You said that OpenLM allows you to track connections to know who was connected to the application and for how long. Today, we use an application with an hourly subscription system, and unfortunately, we cannot track the number of people connected. Do you think that OpenLM is compatible with this type of application? In our case, it is the m.app enterprise platform from Hexagon. You will find all the details on the internet.
Mm-hmm. I think we can answer that after we have checked that, because out of the box I cannot answer it. And Jonas, I think you too. But so we have to take that and answer later on. I think we do some research on it. I think we had it, Hexagon connection with Hexagon in the past, but we have to check that. It's in the moment I talk not possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So next question: do you have repository where all licensing schema can be understood by the tool once discovered? If so, for how many products and what are the most known ones?
What is meant with license schema? I'm not sure if I understand the question. License types, maybe?
Or Osama, you can provide details if you want in the Q&A box.
Yeah, is it floating a named user, or what's the difference?
No, this is the only way I can make sense of it. Maybe talking about license types. I think, sorry, Veronica.
I think so. Or licensing models, maybe?
He answered already. What's the difference between software engineering and SAM?
Okay.
So the difference is that we will monitor the real usage, not the installations, as Oren said in his speech on opening the conference. So where we are monitoring real usage of licenses and not only the installation or the monitoring of the executable, probably. That is the main difference there, and therefore there is no repository for all different license types of all different vendors. The only thing what is what is growing is the license manager types, which are detected automatically by OpenLM Broker. And there we have a list of that. But every license manager type can serve thousands of applications. So this is sometimes very individual.
Okay, we have the next question would be, you've mentioned 3 license server types for integration from Secoptena. How long does it usually take to integrate a new license server? Time-wise, I suppose.
That is very much dependent on what we get there. So as I explained in my first few slides, we first check what are the information sources we can get, and then we check what do we get out of this. So as you can imagine what Jonas explained, it took a bit longer to do it for Windchill, and it took a bit less long for other license manager types. It really depends. We have to do the first checks, what data sources we have and what information we get out of the sources, and then we can give an estimation.
All right.
Yeah. Something
Jonas?
that I'd like to add in the case of Windchill, this was a very complex example, and it took us a lot of time, and this is especially because Windchill system is so critical. The whole manufacturing company depends on it. If you have a scenario like this, you have to be really careful, and it took us months to get the approval to test our software on a production server. So these are all delays that take time. The programming itself usually are a few weeks, but the whole project depends on the circumstances that vary for each license manager.
And also on the cooperation with the customer. Yeah. This is very, very, very important. So sometimes we have a lot of permissions issues that not everybody has access to every server, gets every information. So sometimes it's also an organizational issue.
Okay, thank you. Next one comes from Manish, but I think this also kind of was, does OpenLM has partnership with Windchill?
This is more a question for OpenLM. We don't have a partnership. We, Secoptena, do not have a partnership with PTC, who is the producer of Windchill. I don't know whether OpenLM has something in place like a partnership.
Okay. Next one, is this Windows service need to install in all the user machine?
No, it isn't. It has to be installed once per Windchill server that you have, and it can be installed anywhere. It does not have to be installed on the Windchill server. This would be typically where you install it. In our case, we installed it on a virtual machine. It has to be installed once, and this machine is querying the Windchill API. It has nothing to do with the user workstation.
Okay, another question from Robert. He actually asked if active daily user licenses equal unique users per day.
I think you could say that, yes. So exactly, yeah.
Okay. Okay, how do you align measure data with data protection laws?
This is a general question in terms of OpenLM, not especially for Windchill. It is always a topic, especially for our German customers who follow very strict data protection laws. So the key is to have a good concept of roles and permissions, decide who you give access to see this information. You cannot give it to the whole company because it would enable team leaders to overlook their employees. It is a very sensitive topic, but OpenLM has all the requirements needed to implement it and get the approval from the responsible persons for data protection. But this is a general topic for OpenLM, I guess.
Yeah.
All our big customers have agreements with the data protection officer and with the workers' councils. Otherwise, OpenLM would not be running at these customers. And we use it, typically we configure it as a need to know principle. So you get only the information you need to do your job, and that is the basic principle of the data protection. And this can be done with OpenLM.
Okay, thank you. There is another question here, but I think we also it's mostly for OpenLM. How is software name normalization different from other SAM tools like Flexera, Snow, and ServiceNow? I think you mentioned something before, Stefan.
It's probably regarded, I'm not sure, but I think it's probably related to the mapping between the feature names and the product names you have in SAM. This is always a topic, but OpenLM provides a solution for that. There's let's say an XML schema which can be imported and which also can be extended, and we're doing that constantly, creating new mappings if customer need that, or very often customers provide the mapping and we gave it to OpenLM, and OpenLM integrates it in the product directly. So this is, if that is the question, that would be the answer.
Let me help here.
Yeah.
In some, typically, in software asset management, we refer to normalization as to normalize different name for the same product. So if you take Office, it has 100 different names depending on the country and so on. And normalization is less important in engineering. We don't have such a set process because it's not needed. But in any case, as Stefan mentioned, it can be done within OpenLM as needed.
Okay, most of the questions that are here, they actually addressed OpenLM. So we'll come with any email for you guys. We will send an email from our support team regarding this. There is just a short question in the chat box. Are you partnered with ServiceNow? But I think it's addressed OpenLM. So yes, we are partnered with ServiceNow. Okay, so the rest of the question will be answered the email because I'm mostly concerned OpenLM. Okay, we got another question from Robert. I know that PTC has changed their Windchill license scheme, grouping feature, etc., from Windchill 11 to Windchill 12, even to do Windchill 12.02. Does Secoptena or OpenLM have plans to continue development of Windchill license monitoring?
The plan is to have it as a product with maintenance, and if we have a maintenance, if something changes in the source, we have to upgrade the system that it can read the newer versions.
Okay.
If possible, depends always what we can get from this system. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are done here. All the rest of the question will be answered online because we have a limit of time. So now, thank you very much, Jonas and Stefan, for a great presentation. And I would like to invite now Daniel Tsunaki from BorgWarner. Daniel has more than 10 years experience in the field, and his presentation will be focused on reporting hub, thus customized reports. So Daniel, the stage is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Veronica. So let me share and let's start. So I will be talking about worldwide engineering license management with reporting hub. And basically, let's introduce myself in first place. So I'm Daniel Tsunaki. I'm an engineering system IT analyst working for BorgWarner. I have over 10 years of experience in CAX and PLM RES. That means CAD and CA applications, PLM PDM system, Windchill SAP PLM and Teamcenter, HPC high computing clusters. I'm working with support of end users, shaping the relations with key users and training them. I also have experience in license management and advanced reporting that I would like to show you today. So moving to the next slide, the content of this presentation will be about BorgWarner, a glimpse of the past, about our cooperation, OpenLM Secoptena and BorgWarner, and then we will go to the demo where I would like to show you the case study for today evening. Basically, on the end, I will give you a summary of reporting hub. So let's move ahead. BorgWarner in numbers. Basically, we are a company of 50,000 employees, 96 locations, 23 countries, and almost 10.2 billion sales at the moment. So basically, I can tell you here that 2 years ago, we have been half of that. So we are growing fast, and we are trying to get on the leadership position in our automotive market. So our vision is basically a clean, energy efficient world, and our mission is to deliver innovation and substantial mobility solution for the vehicle market. Moving forward, in order to get that leader position, we are investing heavily in acquisition of other companies. And basically, lately we have acquired Delphi technology, which greatly increased our product portfolio, knowledge base, and enhance our combustion commercial vehicles and aftermarket business. This results in more balance across light and commercial vehicles, as well as the aftermarket. So we want to really be on time and get as much from the market as we can, basically by working hard to acquire required skills, talents, and of course, software to develop this. Moving forward about the software and what we need to build. This is our portfolio. So BorgWarner and Legacy has boosting technologies, engine timing systems from the combustion portfolio. From hybrid one, we have boosters, power electronics, e-turbo, in electrics, high voltage, battery modules, power electronics, and so more. Delphi technologies provide additional fuel assembly delivery products, modules, sensors, as well like engine control and transmission controllers, plus some inverters, battery packs, and more. And if you see, our portfolio basically grows more and more. So we can offer to our customers high range of products that they can use in their vehicles. However, now will be the question, what is the software pool to support this kind of acquisition, and basically what we are using? For CAD, of course, we are using the highest ranked CAD softwares like Creo, CATIA, Siemens, and AutoCAD. Basically, for CAE, we use ANSYS and Abacus. Of course, ECAD, electronic part, we currently utilize Altium, ANSYS, and even the Polarion. So it is good information that Secoptena has add-on for that to monitor. We might need it soon. So in order to monitor that, we have deployed almost 800 plus license services that combines 40 brokers that are collecting each minute usage from those license servers. And basically that is a very huge environment which we need to watch over. And basically that is a full-time job to prevent from losing any kind of monitoring track, because those informations are valuable for us to analyze and basically perform reporting that is mandatory to make a right decision in terms of software asset management we are having inside BorgWarner. So, glimpse of the past. Basically, we are cooperating together with Secoptena and OpenLM since many years. We basically started from 2011 with OpenLM 1.x version, and until now we have been over all major releases and currently landed up on the V21 version. We deployed in the production system, and we are currently monitoring with the latest version our licenses services. And basically, that is 10 years of partnership and solid collaboration, because as Stefan mentioned, a lot of ideas have been also pushed over us, from us over Secoptena to OpenLM, to make the tool more robust and much more helpful for everybody to do the reporting and manage our license inventories. So, moving forward, the case study. We are all aiming at some point to acquire a global contract. However, that creates a trouble, because acquiring it gives us for sure benefits, and we cannot tell anything else about that, because it's easier to manage total costs. For sure, we don't need to handle multi-vendors, resellers, distributors, and so on. It requires less IT and business workforce and resources to basically manage this. However, despite that, it's easier even to manage the license asset on our side, because there is a team that works on that and do whatever is needed in order to address the needs of the business for the licenses. But That raises up some questions from the business side whenever we are getting a global contract for specific products. And of course, those questions are stacking up. In most of the cases are, what is our inventory? Can we track inventory change and moves over time? Do we have a holistic capabilities of usage evaluation and an optimization? Who use it? That is the most curious question. And then, can we automate cost distribution? And of course, in many cases, that all ends up in multiple Excels, which are versioned as many times as we have staff working on that, and it's very troublesome to track that over time. So in order to avoid this work effort in the Excel, it's Reporting Hub. So about the demo, the data I want to show you comes from real license model from one of our main top application. Data was modified basically to not reflect any company internal information like cost or structure. So basically here is the answer for one of the questions, how it is regulated in terms of all and information. You can basically hide a lot. So Reporting Hub can help you out to do that. You need to spend some time on this, but it's possible. Moreover, moving forward, how I would like to show you, I would like to show you how I can answer those questions with the Reporting Hub. So the first one, what's our inventory? That is a very common question. Everybody wants to know what we are having in-house. So basically, Reporting Hub has capabilities to help to enrich the model in a way that we will see the cost, the region, location, and license type information that we want to and are necessary for us to do the studies. And basically, such kind of dashboards can be built to show the latest only inventory, not the one from the whole year, which can differ over time because we are changing and optimizing it by moving licenses, giving back licenses, or basically stop using them because let's say the site is closing and nobody is currently using them, so we need to decide to transfer or not. And basically that then can end up in customized dashboard like this. And now I would like to go over to the example we have here. Basically with the Reporting Hub, you are free to go and customize as you want, especially for this conference. All the columns are related and named SLM. And you can see basically here we can empower the model to see the region where the licenses are. What license feature we have. Also, we can name them as we want to get more transparency for the business that will not know about fancy naming of the licensing from vendor. And each vendor has different one, hard to understand sometimes. We will have the quantity of those licenses installed on the servers. We have location details. We have type of license. Here is one of the also question. We can differentiate, make additional one, not only related to named user license, floating, and so on. We can say those are local licenses, can be installed only in the location. They can be global, global restricted, maybe regional. Depending on the model, we can add additional information like cost and cost calculation of the total pool. And the best thing is that anybody that comes here can look over on the specific environment for the region, can concentrate on the single type or couple of types, or just go with one and basically discard the rest if needed. So here we have flexibility to look over whatever we want in the model. And that provides to the top management the answer, what we have, what are the prices, what is the total accumulated cost of the licenses at each location. So that is how we answer this question. This is just recording. So question number 2, can we track the inventory change moves over time? So basically, this dashboard doesn't look nice at the moment. However, I would like to highlight that we can implement a lot of information in the single line with reporting hub by concatenating the information from many attributes tables. And this works basically in a live demo as follows. I can change the time range in first place. So we can, depending on how many data we will put inside the system, we can look over year, 2 years, 3 years. It's up to you. Then we can track how environment change over the region. As you can see, it will right away show all location and licenses in specific location and region. We can go over each one and see how the usage look like. If we are interested only in one feature, we can discard this filter and put this one. And we are seeing basically that T3 feature is going down in terms of numbers. So we are discarding it, giving it away. T2, we can see that it's appearing as new at some of the locations. There were growth of the licenses inventory in some of them. If one of the location 3, and then we drop down by 7. The same goes for T1 and so on. So we can basically do many things with that. We can examine each location specifically. It's up to us, and basically it's the limit of how to present the data. It's only lying on the side of an IT analyst that is doing those reports. So now, that is how we can answer question 2. So question number 3. Do we have a holistic capabilities of usage evaluation and optimization? Yes. Basically, we are capable of building up this kind of complex dashboard that can be drilled down up to one server, one license feature, server location, and we can define working hours to narrow down our search. As if we go to this part, let's have a look on how it will basically change over time. This one is a daily license usage levels, and it's showing the whole usage from 1st of January till today. The second one below is basically over hours, over 24-hour range. The table over here is a helpful information for me to see where I should look for optimizing some assets. I see that one of them is very good in optimization level, so I will not bother about that because it seems to be used very often. But let's say that I would like to review the ones on the bottom. So I can figure out if I don't want to have weekends included or not. It's possible. We, of course, can go location by location. So let's take location number 3. Over here, we see everything here is working for us and modifying the data and preview based on our selection. We can here differentiate if we want to see local license or global restricted. And then here we can finally go to T1 and see what is happening over here. And as I said, no, this is America. We should adjust the hours to the ones that are basically real working hours, let's say from 11, and then we're having more detailed preview on that. And this over here, I am starting to investigate that, okay, we are reaching really once over last year, 5 license usage. We have spikes up to 4, but to be honest, we could live with maybe 2 or 3 licenses in total. So we don't need that much licenses over here. So we can move them and transfer to any other location. And basically here, we can start to look by discarding those hours, we can have a look what is happening elsewhere, which gives us now a good example where the usage is kind of huge because of that peaks. We try to adjust that, but we notice after some time that it's dropping and there was a request to change that. Of course, we can modify the time range to go up to more recent view of that server to see what is happening over here, and adjust again the working hours because that is an European location. So they start around about 7 and finish around about 16. And this all now shows us what is the optimization level, average, max. Additionally, I forgot to mention the safe win is basically telling us if we can reduce something or not. Over here, it reported there was a spike of 20, so it will tell us that there is no safe win. But if we will try to look somewhere else, maybe like here, we will see that currently over here we can remove 12 licenses because nobody is using them. The spikes are not frequent. We are just recording at twice a day or 3 times a day, sorry, at specific hours. So this can give you the reporting hub, and it is really one of the type of customization I'm using for evaluating license models from the vendors. Now, if we go forward, next information is who use it. Basically, everybody wants to know who is using what, and of course, unfortunately, we need to use user information like logins and whatever is reported by the license log and license service managers. And here, OpenLM has this capability to synchronize user information with the ID, which provides valuable information. However, here is a point, we don't need to reveal them. We can hide them or not even import in reporting hub later on. We just need some kind of base that helps us out to group them, because OpenLM has fantastic functionality to group, automize and group users based on specific Active Directory profiles, which will result in easier identification who and from where it's using our licenses. And of course, having that kind of functionality is a must-have because those two working together will provide outstanding and high-quality data for reporting hub, which will help you to really build up a ton of good reports that will be showing exactly what and who is using and how much. That is a base that everybody are looking for. And to be honest, without that, we cannot work at the moment because licenses need to be paid. We need to know by who, and the global contracts are very difficult in this case because the informations are need to somehow match to the users. So here I will show basically an example how this can be done and what it can do. Basically, we are now looking at T3 license local in the location 3. Thanks to reporting OpenLM Active Directory synchronization, let me turn on the weekends. I am capable of creating a heat maps that are basically showing who is working on the weekends with the licenses. We can later on track that. But more important is that the heat map is showing over here days and the hour range. We can basically tell him to avoid looking at the hours where the usage is concentrated. And this can be done on the full year for each server. Now, here is where the data synchronization with OpenLM kicks in, because over workstation and groups that we manage to synchronize based on specific attributes in our company, we are capable of showing which workstation, and here we can also hide the information about them, are using in most of the case, the data, the licenses. Based on that, we can harvest now the information about usage of that single workstation that created 363 hours over a selected period, and we can evaluate for each day the most important case. If the user is using on that workstation license more than 8 hours. At some cases, you can see there are usage over more than 8 hours, but as I know that model behind and configuration of the license services, I know that he was really working on that, because we have very good timeouts put in place, and it's basically not allowing anybody to leave license floating on a user PC more than 15 minutes. So that is a constant usage. Of course, many vendors will give you many different approaches for that. Sometimes they will prevent from timeouts to work. And here is where monitoring executable can be helpful very much, because that basically connects everything together. You can see which licenses are used, but on by the executable, you can figure out if it's idling and the vendor doesn't support the timeout. So that can be case study for everybody to figure out who is just sitting on license, not doing anything. And now, as I can go to the workstation, I can basically jump to a group. And here I can basically freely browse all the users that are using our licenses. I can identify some kind of small users that are basically connecting from time to time. This is kind of interesting case to investigate if we should lock down access to those, just to cancel this kind of license blocking for 15 minutes or half an hour or something. But we also can differentiate which users or workstations are really the users, and others that are just trying to use the tool for some kind of purposes, and maybe we should basically restrict that even more. So this is what you can get with Active Directory and OpenLM. Moreover, this is recording. Now, the most important question of all. Everybody wants to have fast way to automate the cost distribution, and basically with Reporting Hub, that is possible. This kind of exercise can take 2 to 5 days, depending on the license model, because there are many of them. The token models can give really a painful workload for you to achieve this kind of automized cost distribution dashboard. However, once accomplished, you are getting clean view of who is using what and pays for what and how much. Now, if we go simply to the presentation, on this demo, I can tell you that based on with the Active Directory that we have synchronization we are having, all groups are identified here. Their usage time is present over here. We can distinguish the usage for each feature that has been in our portfolio. That also applies for any packaging features like Oren mentioned on the beginning. We can create packages over here and assign multiple features inside, and everything will work exactly as it is here. Identifying hours for T1, T2, and T3. It can, based on the total usage of those features, identify percentages, which can be later used to identify who should pay what for each different price of the product that you have in the BAM. And basically, you can quickly see that somebody can pay really nothing for T3, T1, but can be very heavy consumer of T2 licenses and will basically be charged by the mainly by those. But this is clearly visible over here. And moreover, that can be exported to final Excel version that finance team will be happy to see. And for you all, as we have always questions from later on managers, how the user distribution over those T1, T2, T3 looks like over workstation, we can provide that. And as per GRPD, this is fine because we are just revealing workstation information, not user behind it. So it can be anybody over there. So in our case, that is a valid information, and that can help out to cut, for instance, this kind of workstation usage that is just producing some kind of usage cost, but over that period of time, it's really nothing. And most important thing about this model is that if I will slide on the right side, it is starting to recompute the information that is stored inside and will show new numbers. You see now the 100,000 changed to 80 based on the latest data that I have added here. So you can basically decide to distribute the cost all over at 1 year, quarterly, monthly. It will do a calculation of that and basically do correct calculation and cost split accordingly to recorded hours. And yeah, that's basically it. So that is a recording of this dashboard. And basically, summary of Reporting Hub is that it's easy to adapt an optimized and fast solution. It can provide you on-time reporting quickly, and the data refresh can be achieved in a few minutes, which we have seen a second ago. And basically, it's very flexible, it's reusable. There was a question about the common schema. It's a reporting hub. It's basically showing everything in the same schema. You just need to be really aware about your license model and know about some kind of special information, special source that vendors are putting into their license model, and teach Reporting Hub how to deal with that. Is it a named user model, token model, whatever? It can be achieved over here and gives you less redundant work later on because it's easy to reuse as a data analytic tool. It has expression and measurements that can additionally be put it, and they are written all by me in our example, and can give you a lot of free flexibility and freedom in deciding on how to do that. Moreover, it's really reliable, provides advanced filtering, and basically here you are the only limitation that you can put inside, because you can add more and more data based on existing one, create new columns, change variables, or add them additionally to have more insight. And basically, I can tell you I'm using Reporting Hub in order to show in the license model perspective our company structure, which is helping me easily to identify who should pay for what and when. So that gives us a lot of freedom and less work to do, as it has a date constraints. As I show, we can basically charge quarterly, monthly, whatever. We can basically easily change the date. And as a result, Reporting Hub has it all. And based on some examples in the past, all the way doing that only over OpenLM, exporting Excel, collecting information, and so on. So could take up to 12 man days for one feature or two. Now with Reporting Hub, after doing that, this time in the year goes to half of a day. And that can go up to top 5 license vendors we have. and really help out to reduce the workload for reporting, which is really, really time consuming. So that's what Reporting Hub is, can give you really help on analyzing difficult and big license models. Also can be used over Power BI. You can connect with Click, whatever tool you will pick to analyze. So thank you very much. That was all from my side. And if you want to know about BorgWarner or more in presentation, there will be links to our main page. Veronica, I'm giving back the voice to you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Okay, we have a few questions here, so let's start. Okay, how difficult was it to configure a reporting hub?
Not really difficult. You can do it with help of OpenLM. They will support you, and it's up to you really to buy the extension and connect the model. OpenLM even provides a startup reporting hub dashboards built in Power BI, which can help you out go over this. So I assume after everything or the official formal things are done, you need 1 day.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Ray. How is the cost entered to the report?
You have, how to say, I'm known from shipping costs from OpenLM directly to Reporting Hub. You can find a way. I cannot tell you exactly how it is, but you can do this, or you can basically do it in the ATO when transformation is happening, or directly in Reporting Hub over Power BI. Many ways. Basically, you are limited to pick which one you want, and you can.
Okay, we have another question here. Which data analysis tool is being used in your example? I think you mentioned it.
Data analysis tool. Oh,
yeah.
Analysis tool is Power BI. Basically, that is the tool. There can be used, as I said, Click, Tableau. You just need to spend more time on how to load the model and how to manage the relations between the tables, but everything is provided by OpenLM provides you the schema of connections, and you can map it together with your database specialist and the analytic that is working with, in any BI tool.
Okay, next question is that Power BI reporting hub connected to OpenLM, REST OData, or directly to OpenLM DB?
No, it's an external database, and that is a good thing because you don't want to load your main database with additional query and workloads, and those reports can be heavy. So you will get basically a separate database which you can, how to say, stress a lot and do whatever you need to make your report without harming the production system.
Okay, and one last question. I think it's a general question. How many engineers are there in your company? Like how many users, I suppose?
Well, we are supporting almost 4,500 at the moment. So we are basically having so many active users that are currently utilizing the portfolio I have shown.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. The questions are done now. Thank you very much for a great presentation. Okay, so I will not, take over from your presentation from your side. I will share with you the agenda once again. And I want to tell you that we're going to have a 15 minutes break right now. But during the break, we will launch a poll and we would love to hear your opinion about that. It concerns the challenges you're facing in license management. There are just a few questions. So while you're drinking your coffee, please complete this poll. After the break, we're going to have Evan Orgel from ServiceNow talking about item challenges and ways to get ahead. So stay with us. Don't go. We're going to have a 15 minutes break and we are back. So let me share the poll view. Here we go. And see you in 15 minutes. Okay, so welcome back to our conference. For those who are watching our live stream on Facebook, this is the Engineering Software License Management Conference. We are here, we're gonna have our next speaker will be Evan Orgel from ServiceNow. Thank you very much for everyone who participated at our poll. I will end the poll now and we will check the results before the panel discussions. Okay, so right now I would like to invite Evan Orgel from ServiceNow to provide us insight about ITAM challenges and ways to get along with those. So Evan, please.
All right, thank you, Veronica. Let me, there we go. And let me share my screen. Gotta share my screen and share. Okay, can you see my screen, Veronica?
Yes, we can see your screen. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for joining and thank you to OpenLM for having me speak today. So today we're going to talk about some of the top ITAM challenges and ways to get ahead. My name is Evan Orgel. I've been in the space of IT asset management for a number of years. I've been at ServiceNow for the last 5 years. Before that, I was with Flexera Software. I've also been in IT for a number of years in Wall Street. Right now, I've been focusing in on IT asset management, covering financial services. So today, I'm really going to be talking about 3 different things. So ITAM trends, this is things that I've been hearing in the field from talking to many of our customers and prospects and organizations that are out there. Some of the solutions that ServiceNow has in the ITAM space and how we can help. And then what we call Now on Now, that's really our internal journey with ITAM, how ServiceNow has gone after software, hardware asset management, leveraging our solutions and some of our practices. So there's a Q&A button. Feel free to jot some questions out there. At the end, I'll take a look and try to answer the questions as we can. So of the ITAM trends, the things I'm seeing or hearing from our customers today are focused around really 3 areas. One of them is risk. And I'll get into details of what I mean by risk. Hybrid work, obviously, with COVID, that's had an impact on our customers. And then looking at areas of reducing costs. And we will get into details for all those areas. So when we talk about risk, what are we really talking about? So some of the risk has to do with vendor audits. Oren talked a little bit about it in his introduction, that a lot of the traditional SAM are focused in on software compliance. There's been an increase in the number of vendor audits that they're conducting at customers, from large vendors to smaller vendors, really trying to generate revenue for themselves. It's a lot easier for them to go to their existing customers, audit them to try and identify, maybe you didn't buy enough licenses for that particular vendor. So they want to make sure that they're getting the revenue from those vendors. And audits tend to be not fun, both from the vendor side and both from the customer side. Internal audit. So I'm seeing a lot of companies conducting internal audits, specifically around IT asset management, trying to make sure that processes, procedures are being followed. Part of it is due to those vendor audits, and part of it is just internal due diligence, just to make sure people are following what they're supposed to be following. I've seen an increase in, especially on the audit side, of tracking end of life and end of support, both on hardware and software. So what I mean by that is companies are trying to identify all of the software and hardware that they have that are no longer being supported by the manufacturer. So no more patches or updates from the software side of things. And this is probably due to an increase in vulnerabilities that are out there, security vulnerabilities typically tied to products that have been end of life where there's no support from the vendors. And lastly, looking at regulatory compliance. So certain areas, especially government, financial institutions, healthcare, have been putting some focus in on the IT asset management space as far as staying in compliance with those regulations. An example of that is, again, I'm focused in on the financial side of things. There's an FFIEC regulatory compliance. They just updated their guidance in this past July, and they specifically call out areas where you need to make sure that you are conducting and have good policies around IT asset management to track, manage, or report on your information and technology assets. Next is looking at an asset inventory, making sure you understand where everything is, hardware, software, maintaining a hardware inventory, maintaining a software inventory that's accurate and up to date, tracking asset end of life. So again, going back to what we talked about, where companies are trying to make sure that they understand what software titles are no longer supported, but also on the disposition side of it. So if you're looking at hardware, making sure that those hardware assets are being decommissioned and disposed of properly, not leaving behind any of your data that may be at risk of being compromised. And the last area is shadow IT. So looking at areas where people in the organization may not be going through the policies and standards and procedures. They may be going ahead and acquiring software on their own, right? Throwing down their corporate card and just purchasing software without having to go through the IT.
Evan,
Yes.
sorry, can you switch to presentation mode because you are in a presenter mode and people...
Sorry, I thought I was sharing the wrong screen.
Now it's better. Good.
Okay. Sorry about that. Oh, hold on a second. Let me pause my share for 1 second. I was sharing the wrong desktop. Hold on 1 second.
It's okay now.
Yeah, I was.
Was okay.
Yeah, 1 second. This review. Sorry, and let me share my screen. Apologies, I was on the wrong screen. Okay, there we go. All right, so is that better?
Yes,
Sure,
yes.
that's okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so moving on to the next area. So that was risk. Now we're looking at hybrid work, right? So obviously with COVID, many companies around the world shifted very quickly to a hybrid work, right? Sending workers home, working from home, lots of disruptions to the work. This caused some issues with, having to move assets from the office to home, right? Making sure people had laptops and were able to operate from home caused an impact. Also, onboarding and offboarding workers was a challenge, right? So typically in the past, new hire would show up, they'd go to the office, you'd give them the laptop. Now they're not even coming into the office, right? Or people leaving, right? They're not coming into the office to drop off the equipment. Now everything is remote. Everything's got to be shipped back and forth. Some companies are shipping directly from, where they're buying the hardware directly to the end user without even coming into the office. There's also an increase in service delivery times. When you're, people themselves, employees, internal IT, were working from home and working remotely, so it made it much more challenging for them to meet the demand that the switch over to home had. There's also an impact on user satisfaction, right? So if it takes longer to get requests done, your end users weren't going to be happy. So COVID definitely had an impact from an asset management perspective, and lots of the organizations were trying to identify solutions that could help in that specific area. And then last, around cost reduction, right? So companies are always looking to do more with less. Software costs make a large part of an IT budget. Companies are focused in on cutting spend when possible. If you look at some of the industries that were really impacted by COVID, so travel companies, entertainment, oil and gas, they had major downturns in it, and they were really focused in on trying to reduce spend wherever they could. And obviously, software cost was one of the #1 issues that they were trying to reduce. SaaS spend, so lots of new vendors out there, lots of products are really moving to the software as a service model. So making sure you can keep track of that spend that was easier before, when you had to install software. So companies typically had to go through IT to get it to be able to install the software. But now that it's running in a SaaS, you may just be accessing that software through the browser. So IT may not even know that you have that software out there. So keeping track of that spend is something that companies are interested in going after, and reducing how much money is being spent on those SaaS applications. More companies are shifting workloads to the cloud. So making sure that they're keeping an eye on those costs is important. Just because you move things from a physical to a virtual doesn't mean it's going to be any less costly, right? It's different kinds of costs. And, it's very easy to spin up these virtual instances and then worry about, how you're going to pay for it later on. And then last is hardware. So we because of the hybrid stuff, the work from home, we do see customers really looking at trying to reduce their spend on the hardware side, and managing those assets and finding ways to cut spend is something that was top of mind as well. So I'm going to switch gears now and talk a little bit about, how ServiceNow sees the landscape, and what are some of the things that we're doing to help our customers, especially in the areas that we just talked about. So what we're really about is a unified cloud platform. It's one platform, one data model, one architecture, with flows that work across the enterprise. From a ITAM perspective, what we're looking to do is be a central system of record for IT. We want to manage any asset, anywhere. So that's software, hardware, on premises, and hybrid clouds. You want to understand all the IT consumption, all your environments. It wouldn't make sense to have hardware asset management and software asset management in different systems. You need to know the hardware that you have, that your software is running on. We also want to run ITAM where you plan to run, your service management, your business management, and other areas on a single platform. And when you have the more of these processes together in the same place, the better the value, the quicker you get up to speed, the quicker you can leverage what you have. So when we look at it, we want to really manage the full life cycle of that asset. So having everything in one place allows me to interact with other areas of the business. So it's not just about managing the software. You're tied into, hey, I want to be able to, my users want to be able to request the software. So I want to make sure I have a catalog of it available to make those requests. So you're tying into your service management. We only want to buy the software and hardware for new employees if it's not currently in stock, right? We want to make sure we can provision, either it's software or cloud resources or hardware from stock rooms. So we're tying into the deployment technology or tying into, your stock rooms to make sure that employees are getting the hardware that they need, right? We talked about sending things to home. From an operations, I want to understand visibility into my environment. I want to look at my usage. I want to try to mitigate risks, tying into events and other outages and things like that I can want to be able to take advantage of. From a risk standpoint, I want to make sure that from an internal audit and making sure that I'm keeping with those risk controls that I have out there. We talked about vulnerabilities a little bit. So from a security standpoint, right, they're interested in, hey, are there any vulnerabilities that are out there that I may need to take action on or may be vulnerable to? And then from a service management, right, when we go ahead and open up tickets, problems or incidents, if there's changes that are happening, I want to make sure that my assets are up to date. And then from a retirement, we're looking at the end of life, software or hardware that's no longer supported by the manufacturer. Want to look at, which ones I want to be able to go ahead and dispose of. If I'm doing refresh or upgrades, make sure I can manage all of the flows for those processes. So really give you the end-to-end view of the life cycle of an asset. So traditional software compliance, right? We want to give you a deeper understanding and insights across the SAM manager's entire portfolio, both from on-premise software to cloud software. So I want to see the publishers that are out of compliance, where I've deployed more software than I've purchased, right? The two big things of calculating your compliance, you want to understand what software you purchased, what did you own, as well as what software you've deployed out there, whether it's deployed on your end user, on your computers, in your data center, or whether it's a SaaS application you're using or an engineering type of application. So we want to understand those two pieces together, get your compliance position. And then we want to look at, hey, is there a true up cost? Do I have to pay more money to get buy my way back into compliance? Or maybe I've gone the other way. I've spent more money on software than I deployed. So maybe I want to go ahead and identify areas where maybe I bought too many licenses and I want to be able to try and maybe reduce my maintenance. Do I have any contracts or subscriptions or maintenance that's coming due that I need to start taking a look at? Identifying, hey, who are the top publishers' true-up costs, right? Or what are the software titles that are going end of life? Or again, looking at the compliance, or maybe we have potential savings from reharvesting software, right? So if I understand what software is being used, who's using it, I could identify maybe people have software on their machine that they haven't used it in 3 months or 6 months. Maybe I can pull back that license and give it to reallocate it to somebody else. Or maybe I'm looking into, bring your own licensing. If I have these licenses that I purchased and now I'm moving some workloads to the cloud, can I leverage those licenses in that cloud? So I talked a little bit about the shadow spend. So what we have in that space is giving our customers the ability to bring in information, from a general ledger accounting system, from an expense system, to detect company-wide SaaS and software purchases, help you organize them by cost center, department, geographic location, really looking at software that was actually spent. So maybe it could be software that IT doesn't know about, right? The shadow IT. You want to understand where those purchases are coming from, so you can ensure, you know, proper paths to purchase are taken throughout the organization. What we do here is we take that purchasing data, we leverage our machine learning and compare it to a large content library to try and normalize those software titles. And then we do a categorization of those titles to allow you to identify maybe software that have the same capabilities and performing similar business functions. So, you know, maybe I have, you know, 5 different video conferencing tools, right? So this helps us, or helps customers identify, you know, shadow spend, where the money is being spent, and areas where people are spending money on software that maybe I don't need anymore. Or maybe that software titles are providing the same capabilities. So again, you could start going through an application rationalization project. So from a vulnerability side, customers told us they're seeing an increased volume of vulnerabilities. It creates an ongoing challenge to accurately assess the true exposure to a software vulnerability. So for example, when a new malware hits the news that exploits a vulnerability, customers want to know immediately what their overall exposure is with. Customers really want to be able to accurately determine the risk of exposure and then be able to take action quickly. So the exposure assessment comes in, you could check their exposure. So it's going to look up that, you know, hey, we found out there's a vulnerability with, you know, Photoshop 2016 or Visio 2016 Pro has a new vulnerability from Microsoft. I want to know how many of my machines have that particular version of software. And then I can go ahead and create, you know, an item to go ahead and track. So again, this works in conjunction with our security vulnerability teams that are interested in tracking the vulnerabilities. One of the things that we just released about a year ago was, while we were primarily focused in around software asset management, we came out with a product around hardware asset management. So it's providing out-of-the-box prescriptive workflows to manage the physical asset from cradle to grave. So from request, acquire, receive, deploy, all the way through the dispose phase, we're providing out-of-the-box flows like stock order process, a hardware refresh process, an RMA or a return merchant authorization process, a swap process, a disposal process, a leased asset return process, loaner asset request process. So these are out-of-the-box flows that you could turn on and take advantage of a prescriptive flow to walk through those different lifecycle processes. So very easy to use and take advantage. Instead of you having to build all those processes yourself, you take advantage of the ones that are pre-built for you. We also do hardware normalization. So on the software side, it came up in an earlier conversation or someone posted, we do normalize the software titles. We provide end of life for the software. We also do that for the hardware. So on the hardware side, we're looking at laptops, desktops, servers, network equipment, mobile devices are all areas where we have content for. Content's updated on a weekly basis, so you're always up to date with the newest manufacturers, newer products, part numbers, things like that. We want to help you control the inventory that's purchased and used, reduce the cost of purchasing and managing assets, compliance with standards, improve service to end users. and create the standards to manage those assets. So hardware has definitely been one of the areas that we're seeing a lot of traction on. Another better together story, we call it, is we've come out with some out-of-the-box controls for our risk management solution. So these are help manage controls, either the ISO or CIS controls. We have out-of-the-box templates for 11 of those controls related to software and hardware, looking at, hey, am I collecting inventory, right? Because we need the inventory in order to do compliance position. Or are you conducting a physical audit? So making sure that the data is coming into the system from audits that are conducted. And then we do have a partnership with OpenLM. I threw this one in there. We do support the OpenLM from an engineering license manager. The goal in ServiceNow is to take the feed from OpenLM that's going to give us the consumption, the peak consumption for the different products. And then in ServiceNow, just like you're managing your Microsoft, your Oracle, and your other software, you're going to manage your entitlements for your engineering licenses there for true ups and renewals and things like that. So I'm now going to flip into, so we talked about what I'm seeing in the field. I talked about some of the solutions ServiceNow has. I'm going to flip over now and talk about what did we do internally in ServiceNow. So these were some of the challenges we had before we implemented our SAM solution. So from a visibility standpoint, we didn't really have good visibility into our total spend. Not all our Microsoft subscriptions or license entitlements were being stored and managed. From a control standpoint, software licensing wasn't centralized. We had multiple groups that were buying their own software licenses. The time it took for user requests to be fulfilled took a long time. So we had a bit of a poor user experience in the delay from when I requested software to when I was delivered. A lot of the SaaS software wasn't being tracked. So one of the examples was, during COVID-19, we had increased demand for Miro whiteboarding, and we wound up adding over 4,000 users, which was an unexpected IT expense. And last, trying to manage the cloud workload. So we have a lot of our workload being done in the cloud in Azure and AWS. And it was in order to try and optimize and save some money, it was a lot of manual effort to try and right size and decommission the unused machines. So those were the challenges. So what was our approach? So we started off by creating 3 roles with clear responsibilities. So a SAM process owner was a senior person with influence and authority to make sure that the process was being executed correctly and consistently across the organization. We had a SAM analyst responsible for creating and maintaining the software asset information, in the models, the entitlements in that area. And then we had an administrator who was responsible for bringing in the data, the inventory data, the discovery data, integrations into the system. We established trustworthy data. So make sure that our foundation data was set up correctly. We integrated different inventory sources. So software installation from our ServiceNow has a agentless discovery that can go out and discover hardware and software that's running in your environment. Most of our customers use that in the data center area. We also integrate with SCCM, JMF for Macs, Qualys, and VMware. So we brought all of those inventory sources into ServiceNow, into the CMDB. We created software entitlements to track what it is that we actually purchased. And we ran our reconciliation process to get our compliance position. Then we also integrated some operations. So software requests, we have our service catalog within ServiceNow to provide a one-stop shop for requesting software. We leveraged or made changes in our software sourcing. So if we didn't have extra entitlements, we went through and created a standardized purchase order to purchase the new software. And then we integrated with SCCM and Jamf to look at usage, software usage data, and reclaim any unused licenses, including when someone leaves the company. And then we implemented our cloud insights. That lets us pull recommendations from multiple cloud providers. And we looked at Azure first. That was our primary cloud provider. So here are some of the outcomes. So I talked a bit about Miro. So when COVID-19 hit, most employees began working from home. We needed the whiteboard to collaborate with colleagues. So we went with Miro, signed up around 4,500 users for a 3-month trial. And at the end of that trial, we were going to go ahead and negotiate and purchase the license with Miro. But because we were able to look at the usage, we identified the fact that we only really needed 1,500 licenses, not the 4,500. So we wound up saving around $740,000 just for that application. In general, we're saving over $1.5 million just over the last 2 years. On the productivity side, by automating the software request, saved 3,200 hours, which was almost $300,000 over the same time. On the cloud infrastructure through optimization, so we were using the cloud insight that I mentioned. We automated the right sizing and decommission of virtual machines, saved cost, reduced waste, while following ITIL best practices for change management and approvals. From a self-service experience, we were able to automate and the approval process to speed up the software delivery. Obviously, it was a big win for the users. They got the software faster, but IT staff also benefited because instead of doing some of these more manual tasks, they were able to do more high-value work. From a visibility, the dashboard gives us visibility into the license allocation, cost, and compliance. One of the things that we also did is I talked a bit about the spend detection. So our headcounts doubled in recent years. People were buying software on credit cards. So spend detection, we looked at over 1 million credit card transactions over the last 2 years, spend of over hundreds of millions of dollars. And we found 750 products that were being used internally that we didn't necessarily know of before. It would have taken us, weeks or months to do it if we were trying to do it by hand. But with the detection, it only took a couple of hours. So one of the next steps is dive into those products and look at overlapping spend, consolidating contracts, and rationalization opportunities. And then obviously from a quality perspective, accurate, up-to-date software license data, improve the trustworthiness of reporting to the executives. And then our journey continues, right? So we always say SAM is not a destination, it's a journey. So looking at automating the software request and reclaim, going after additional SaaS vendors, so Zoom and SAP were some of them, looking at moving our licenses that we have on premises to the cloud, so bring your own licenses, and looking to manage spend better with what we talked about with the spend detection. So that's from a SAM perspective. Now we also implemented our hardware asset management. So again, some of the challenges, we were fortunate to make the shift from office-based to virtually all remote, but that brought new challenges in how we manage our assets. In the past, we relied on our internal IT to respond to user requests, like a refresh for a computer, laptop, for new hires. Much of the IT staff was now working remotely. We had to rethink that process. And then in order for our IT staff to provide assets to the growing workforce, most of which was office-based. We built up local inventories and laptops and other equipment. When COVID-19 hit, managing those inventories became difficult and time-consuming. Just an example, we have over 16,000 employees. About 6,000 joined over the last 2 years. So it's a lot of influx of new people, new equipment that had to be managed. So what did we do? We wanted to create a faster automated way to deliver assets. And to do that, we used our own platform. ServiceNow Hardware Asset Management gives us visibility through the entire asset lifecycle. When we implemented it, we redesigned the vendor workflows, streamlined and automated our lifecycle processes end to end. Digital transformations, changing how we deliver assets. So in order to boost productivity and improve operational and financial efficiencies, we created a streamlined asset delivery process called Zero Touch. Zero Touch automates the ordering, asset tagging, delivery, setup of new hire and employee computer refresh orders. Everything's tracked and processed by the system. So some of the outcomes, so using Zero Touch, we saved 30 days in depreciation and warranty expense on each asset. So that's going to save us around $500,000 this year. From an efficiency standpoint, we saved 45 minutes per asset, and that really adds up. So it's about 4,500 hours that we predict that we can save time. Again, the more we can automate, the less manual work that people have to do, and they can start doing some more of the high value work. Speed was important. So we increased the delivery by 90% faster. So again, faster delivery to users. They can be more productive more quickly and have a better user experience. And then, employees were able to get the laptops and equipment they needed while working at home. So important for new hires, right? We want to make sure that they're comfortable, they get a good impression of ServiceNow, so they continue to stay working at ServiceNow. So just to wrap up, we talked about, some of the trends, from a risk, hybrid work and cost reduction, looked at some of the solutions from ServiceNow, software asset management and hardware asset management, and what we did at ServiceNow from both a SAM and a HAM perspective. So I wanted to thank everyone for joining. I don't know if there's any questions for me in the Q&A, but happy to stay on and answer any questions that anyone may have, either about software, hardware, ServiceNow, or anything else I could answer.
Thank you, Evan. We actually have a question from Adam. I'm not sure you can see it. Without procuring what was presented to me as SAM Pro, can ServiceNow manage recording of asset entitlement and procurement activities around it without much customization? I refer to software contracts, licenses, which then are split into license entitlements.
So without procuring SAM Pro, can record it without much. So there is a way without the SAM Pro adds a lot of value. So our normalization, our license metrics and calculations. Without SAM Pro, you can store a contract and an entitlement. You're not going to get a compliance position, but you can tie in there's a concept of a contract and an entitlement record. So yeah, you could do it without customizing it. It's not going to give you a compliance position, but you can track, I bought this software. What you're not going to get with the without SAM Pro is really the metrics around it. So I can store common metrics like a per device license or a per user license, but you don't get the per core license or Microsoft per processor license or IBM PVU license, or even like the engineering, the floating and network and concurrent license types, right? All of those are part of the SAM, what we call the SAM that you'd have to buy, whether it's a professional or enterprise edition.
Okay, thank you. There is another question here. How is OpenLM integrated into ServiceNow and what enhancement does it offer?
Yeah, so let me bring this slide up. So I don't know if you can see this slide, if I'm still sharing. So what we're bringing in is obviously, you know how OpenLM works. You have your broker talking to the database. What we're doing is we're pulling that information, the inventory, the concurrent usage, the sessions, users, denial events, bringing that into ServiceNow. And then in ServiceNow, you're entering in your contract information, your entitlement information, and on the reporting side of it, looking at areas where, hey, maybe I have, you know, maybe I have a true up, or maybe I have potential savings of licenses that I could go ahead and reduce cost. So there's workflows and actions that you could take and manage within ServiceNow. But we're relying on OpenLM for the usage data.
Okay, thank you, Evan. There are no further questions, so thank you very much, Evan, for this great presentation. I would like you to stay for panel discussion, but first I would like to share the results of the poll. So let me see if I can share it. Can you stop presenting, Evan? Okay. Great. So I will share the results and you will see the results on your screen. Okay. So let's go with the first one. The most challenging part of license management is, and the top answer would be license usage control and monitoring. On the second place is license compliance audits, license inventory, and other. Question number 2, how many vendors audit have you experienced in the last 12 months? Okay, most of you answered 0, then there is 1, 2, 3, and we even have an answer 4 and more. Did the remote work influence the license management process? Most of you, I think it's like half and half of the participants said no, and this, on the second place there is yes, it became harder. For other, yes, it became easier. And we have a small percentage of other. Number 4, have the license requests increased in your company in the last 12 months? We have yes. There's a lot of yes here. On the second place, the answer is no. And the third place, it increased actually. Number 5, what information is mostly requested by your management? Okay, so on the top is reports on unused, rarely used licenses. Number 2 would be top most used licenses. Number 3, top most expensive licenses. And okay, we don't have no idle licensing reports. Nobody actually chose this one. No request and other, these have less answers. So question number 6, which one do you prefer? On-premise or cloud solution for license management? Okay, we have mostly 50-50 here, cloud, 52% and on-premise 45%. Question number 7, what are your main future concerns regarding license management? So 55%, the answer would be changes of licensing models. This is a subject that we will also discuss in the panel discussion. With 26% is increase of licensing costs, then other, and 6% aggressive license audits. Question number 8, have you calculated the return of investment of your software asset management? No, 77% said no, yes, 23% no other. Question number 9, according to your opinion, which is the fastest way for SAMs to learn ways to optimize licenses? Trainings, 32%, documentation knowledge base, 26%. Okay, we have other, and webinars, 16%. So this is the results of our poll. I think it's very interesting to see that the most challenging part, it is indeed license usage control and monitoring. We see you participants that have experienced some audits. And now I would like to invite you all for the panel discussion. I would like to invite our speakers alongside our OpenLM colleagues, VP Sales, Branislav Potocek, and Chaim Leiderman, Branislav Potocek, VP Services, and Chaim Leiderman, VP Sales, who will coordinate this panel. Chaim, please.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session. We have a good number of questions. I apologize in advance. Some of the questions will be answered by email later, and we will just raise a few as we go. I will direct the questions to specific people, but everyone is open to put his remarks. So the first one is a very simple one, and maybe complicated, and it goes to Daniel. How did the trend to work from home affect your work? What are the software capabilities you'll be looking to implement as a result of it?
Well, to be honest, for sure, some kind of stopper of work, because it likes the work time can extend over 8 hours. So it's either application or just basically somebody needs to power off my grid. That would I would say, but the overall tendency is to work more than rather than less. But that also this whole thing happened to basically help me out to be more proactive, because I can restart the work at any time I want, and that is very valuable thing, because there are times when the best ideas are coming when you are driving back to home and not being at work. So a lot of times I can restart at any time, but I need to confront my family afterwards. But that I think everybody are having now. And for my overall way of work, nothing changed, to be honest. I'm fully network guy. I work and talk with people over Teams and all their tools. I don't see any change on my side in terms of.
Daniel, I wanted to ask about that. Your engineers typically that switched from working from in the office to work from home. Did they get like workstations home, or used laptop, or used VPN, or virtual machines? What was the way you solved the access problem to the company?
Well, actually, the best thing is we went into basically laptops, and for those where we didn't have sufficient disk space, because nobody is buying 1 terabyte disks and so on, we tried to provide USB drives with a set of standard equipment, means software, that can be utilized from home, which increase performance, of course, and avoid problems with breaking a VPN connection or bad internet quality, basically. So that worked out. We are basically we deployed ways to update those drives, because as we know, software vendors like to update their machines as their machine software, as well as provide patches. People want a new version of software, and we manage also to go along with that. And yeah, that is extra effort, but we could do it.
But how did, maybe one more, sorry, Chaim, it's very interesting. Did you have a problem with users working from home accessing their network licenses, or did you use borrowing, or how did you get over that?
Basically, we pushed to go with usage of licensing on the country base. So we didn't want to go with borrowing, because here is a very important thing. It's a kind of dangerous thing to do borrowing while working from home, because the time is counted constantly. And then idea of watching idle times and so on doesn't matter, because it's borrowed. And for the global allocations, especially with the global licenses, then are heavy to face with users, and I know cases where it was heavy money just for a couple of users that were borrowing. So we started to avoid this practice and discuss with our vendors to basically allow this kind of work. If we have licenses, we know that people work around about the same close proximity to the license server. They should be allowed to use that. COVID was a surprise for everybody, and we expected to have some way and some kind of privileges and agreement from the vendors to move along with this situation.
Thank you.
Ryan, did you have a different experience in the US? Hello?
No.
Oh, he's not here with you.
Oh, you're talking to me?
Oh, yeah, Brian.
Sorry, I was muted still. We had a very similar experience to that. It kind of took us by surprise. It was middle of March last year. I was going to kind of speak to it in my presentation, but we had a little bit of it. It kind of took everybody by surprise. So we had VPN access, but I would guesstimate probably at least 80% of our folks went virtual. And we had people actually having trouble to even connect to VPN. And so the second or third day into it, all of a sudden I had all my licenses were borrowed, all my SolidWorks licenses. And that's something that I didn't even think about.
Yeah.
And so I immediately had to get in the options file and lock that down.
Yes.
And I'm going to speak a little bit more to that in my presentation. But yeah, we experienced that as well.
Okay, I've got one more for you. Go to the previous period before the corona, the pandemic. How difficult, or what are the obstacles you were facing in trying to implement savings or license management or license utilization management within the company?
So mostly it was switching the floating licenses. We had so many people. We had a big surge of hires last year for a pending contract that come up. So we were really having to track the usage and specifically the denials, actually, to be able to track and justify spending that. So it was really just trying to stay ahead of the curve, of the staffing curve, and plan for that, look at our current usage, and then be able to kind of forecast that out into the future for the hires we had coming on board.
Okay.
Can you ask, I would like to ask a further question regarding maybe to anyone. I think the most obvious thing when something like that happens and everyone is scattered around and going home is to move the license server to the cloud. Did you do that, or and if not, why?
Was that to me?
Yeah.
We had looked at that, and I know most of our SolidWorks, most of our assets are SolidWorks licensing, and they did have where you could do that, manage it on a cloud, but they've actually started going away from that. So we mostly host all of our license servers internally on different virtual machines. So for us, it was just a matter of getting additional VPN licenses up, and our IT guys got that turned around pretty much within a week. And so it really hasn't been that much of an issue since we got all that ironed out. But it was a crazy week. I actually had to go into the office a couple times because I couldn't even connect to the VPN. So I had to go back into work just to be able to connect to the network. So it's kind of bad when your admin can't even get on to do anything about anything.
Yes.
To be honest, that's the same case here. We didn't push to cloud at all. Most of our, when we have the ELA, enterprise license agreements, most of the licenses are basically available on the country base or global. So
I see.
was no point.
You know what? It made all the internet service providers happy and all the Cisco extra licenses that needed to be purchased to accommodate everybody working from home. They were really happy about it, because what you had previously, like a 50 megabit bandwidth, maybe for around 100 users. At the same time, now you had 1,500 engineers connecting, and not just trying to get the licensing, because licenses, they are not really that bandwidth heavy, but somebody trying to transfer the CAT parts, the CAT data over the VPN endpoints. So, that was probably the biggest challenge of it.
And
Islav, one for you. Automating some related task is important, but it's complex. In your previous job, how did you tackle it, and where did you actually fail?
No, so we failed a lot, and if I had to split it actually to two groups, the two problematics, and one was the technological problematic, regarding all the tools that we use, and the other one was what I'm going to call, let's call human resources problematic, or people problematic overall, actually, changing the way how people think. And on the technological front, it was the main hurdle was making, because we used two different solutions, one for the software asset management portion and one for the hardware asset management portion. So there had to be a connectivity created on the back end, which basically ensured that the hardware assets are streamed to the SAM tool properly, which in some cases it worked, in other cases it didn't work as well. And the other hurdle, as far as the standard SAM was concerned, was actually loading the entitlements, which I still think in many cases is a painful process that needs to be done manually, making sure that everything is loaded there. And there are in many companies teams of people who do this job. And on the other hand, as far as the engineering license portfolio was concerned, and as you know, because I already talked about it previously, but the audience doesn't know, we tried to actually structure it under one software asset management team, both the standard SAM, the Microsoft, Oracle, IBM, and the engineering licenses. So it could actually work together under the same banner, which I believe is still is the way to go, because you want to have it centralized. So on the engineering front, the problematic regarding loading the entitlement, what's not so much, because you actually get, at least for the network license, you get the entitlement directly from the license file. But the hurdle as far as automation goes, and it was very nicely showcased today by Daniel with the reporting hub. The reporting hub was a key step into actually automating the day-to-day engineering SAM person's work, because we could plug in different sources of data, like for example, the cost, the groupings coming from the Active Directory. So this was a major step. And this is as far as the technological hurdles go. The personal problem was making sure and convincing the management that indeed the engineering SAM and the standard SAM should actually work together. They should be under the same banner and overseen by the same manager, because in the end it's all software. And then also ensuring that the internal cooperation in the ITAM team between the hardware asset team and the software asset team is also there. And the third step was ensuring that the SAM team, as far as the software procurement process goes, or the software renewal process goes, was integral to the purchasing. And this was actually touched by Evan in his presentation, because from experience, there was a lot of problems during the software acquisition process where people just used their credit cards. They kept randomly buying software and it was not centralized. Therefore, it was extremely harder to manage. So these two components, when they come together, that's how you get the proper automated, not just SAM team, but asset management team.
Okay, one for Jonas. Jonas, the trend led by Adobe and Autodesk to switch to named licensing that are managed typically by cloud license managers. How does this affect the license manager, and especially, from both sides? You've been there and you're now working with them. How does it affect them, and what can we do about it?
I didn't get the very first part of the question. Sorry. Was it about a specific license? About a
No,
specific
not
software?
specific one. Just the trend
Just in general.
of switching to named licensing.
Well, what I know from personal experience from my previous job as a license manager, and also from our customers, is that we lose some transparency, of course. If we do not have our licenses on premise, we have less interfaces in order to monitor them. And especially we as OpenLM and Secoptena, we are always struggling to connect these cloud license managers. Some of them have interfaces, but if they don't, then it's pretty hard. So I think the software vendors show an increasing interest to move them to the cloud also in order to create this lack of transparency, because it is in their favor. So this is my personal opinion.
Okay.
I mean, it's also, I mean, I'll throw in there, it's also a way for them to
Yeah.
make more money, right? So, you know, subscription licensing, generally you're paying every year for those subscriptions. And unless something happens, you typically keep those subscriptions. Like you said, if you don't have insight into it, you wind up buying more than you actually need.
Only a comment from my side, even if you have the named user licenses on premise installed in your company, when you don't have something to monitor that, the number of named user licenses will grow if nobody checks that unused licenses probably can be assigned to somebody else. So this is really a bad situation for a license manager if you don't have the transparency. Strange enough, yesterday I had a meeting with a customer. He told me what OpenLM can do for the Autodesk cloud license thing is okay for him, because he anyway charges by the name. So we get the name user assignments from the Autodesk clouds, he said, and I will charge them. And if they don't use it, it's their cost center who has to pay it. So it's probably not in the sense of the company. This is not good for the company, but the license manager himself said it's sufficient for me.
Good, thank you. The last question I have, I want Oren to start with, and then everybody to join in, is a general one, is what is the vision on further developing the technology over the next few years? The technology obviously related to what we're doing. And it's always good, you know, to show some dreams, and Oren is a master in this. Oren, please.
Thank you. From my vision, and yeah, I would like to hear the other mostly, but my vision is that we worked and we keep working very hard to get the data in and accurately map everything and to bring the data to people. But eventually we are leaving a lot of work to be done, analysis and work to be done by our customers. So for example, the amazing work that Daniel did and many others. So I would like to see more automation coming in. So, okay, we found this and we automatically switch this person from that license to this license, and we just let you know. This is what we're trying to push now. One thing that we managed to promote recently is to bring our first machine learning model into OpenLM, and it will become available to customers soon. And I think this is, from my perspective, something I would like to see.
Anyone?
Well, here I will add to that, because basically what is the biggest challenge all the time is how vendor will start to change their basically a strategy for the licensing, packaging. And here is basically where some machine learning, AI would be good if we can just give proper data over OpenLM to show with what we are dealing. Because at the moment, the biggest challenge for me is ANSYS, because their packaging change each 3 months. So it's very interesting that you can end up between two license agreements with totally different set of features, packages. Some might not exist anymore, and so on. And it's very challenging to basically figure out what will be in the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Basically, we cannot predict that. However, for this period of the contract that we have now, we could try to get some kind of learning curve for that machine learning or AI that could help us to understand what is happening, because we are observing that features that never been used are pulled now. We don't know why. How to say, software is written in the way that is calling features for some kind of reasons we cannot explain. We don't have a clear answer from the vendors, and that can be a problem in the future because we might be forced to buy something that we never had, but all of a sudden it's must have to run our work. And what to do now? We are forced to buy it, and we cannot predict what it will be.
Thank you.
I'll talk a little bit about on ServiceNow side. So, you mentioned machine learning. So we introduced that from a normalization process to try and help normalize software titles by leveraging it. We're leveraging machine learning on the spend detection, analyzing transactions for it to try to normalize what those transactions are. We're also looking at trying to make it easier for people by giving them out of the box flows, and not just saying, all right, look at the data and figure out. It's like, hey, we looked at the data, these are the steps that you need to take. Oh, you're coming up with a renewal, or you got audited for Microsoft. Here are the prescriptive steps that you need to take in order to, answer that audit or take care of that renewal. So that's some of the stuff that we're working on.
And also what customers request, let's say many times, not too many, but they already request is trend analysis. So in the moment, for example, I can set an alert and tell you, okay, you've reached 95% utilization. Probably you get the first denials. But if you would have a trend analysis, let's say, saying in 60 days, you will reach the limit if the trend goes on. This would also help, in the probably different variants of such a trend analysis, which could be done, because people want to look in the future. Or if you, for example, have different types of people using the software, you have a hardcore developer, 8 hours a day, you have a project leader, 1 hour per day or per week, etc., and get a new project, and you can know by the type of person who is member of the project, and you should get a trend. Should I purchase new licenses, or is it not necessary? And the data is it's available in OpenLM. It's a matter of analysis.
Yeah, maybe I can comment on that, because something we have been working for long, and I hope that users also find it interesting, is to get to the end user and try to influence him positively to use the licenses in a more friendly manner. So the beginning is like a dashboard, can run on his browser or even on his phone, and he can see his activity, and we want to enrich it slowly and give him comparison of how is it positioned to other people and so on, just to enforce positive behavior. So if you stop using it, you close, you release, we want to enforce it. If you left it idle for 24 hours, then we want to reduce this behavior. So
just throwing it out there, it would be interesting to do some sort of gamification on that. Like, all right, hey, the people that save the company the most, get prizes or things like that, or compensation or things like that. That would be a good way to influence behavior.
Yeah, the concern about that, we're always trying to be gentle about it, so people are, you're following up on me, but we don't provide it to the management. It goes to you. That's the focus.
Yeah, but it'd be the other way. Like I'm saying is, yeah, I'm incentivized to save money for the company because, hey, if I'm in the top leaders of the people that are saving it, right, I'm going to get a prize or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Veronica, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I know we planned a break, but I would like to ask Brian to step in and have his presentation now. We have a presentation from Dynetics on the way Brian managed to optimize the licenses and to reduce the costs. So I would like Ryan to take the stage and have his presentation. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Am I broadcasting?
Sorry.
Can you hear me now? The sound cut out on me for a second there.
We can see you.
Okay.
But you didn't.
Don't forget to share the screen.
Yeah, I will do that. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. See my screen there?
Yes, we do. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Brian McElroy with Dynetics. I'm going to present today on how we've leveraged OpenLM to increase our license efficiently and also reduce our cost. A little bit about me. I'm the principal mechanical engineer at Dynetics. I'm also fulfilling the role of the CAD and PDM administrator. That's mostly focused on SolidWorks. And then we have also stood up 3D Experience back in middle of 2018. So I'm actually the administrator on that as well. A little bit of my experience of 4 years in manufacturing. I have 22 years of mechanical design experience. 22 years of CAD administration, mostly again on the SolidWorks side. I got into PDM about 17 years ago, managing SolidWorks PDM work group. And then I was the first one I know in the Huntsville area to stand up SolidWorks PDM Enterprise, which is now PDM Professional, right after they bought Kinesio. And then now I'm dabbling in the PLM side with the 3D Experience. Some of our current licenses we track. We have several vendor daemons. I think we're up to like 10 now. We track our primary CAD software here again is SolidWorks. We also have some CATIA V6 and we have a V5C. And then we also have some Creo and Windchill that we track. We also track Mentor graphics software. And then we've just recently added Cameo, which is Dassault Systems bought No Magic. So that's their Magic Draw. It's based on Magic Draw. I think Magic Draw is actually still a product they have, but we have the Cameo. We track FEMAP and ANSYS. We also have some Thermal Desktop, which actually rides on top of AutoCAD and then uses the Send to Fluent code for the NASA thermal analysis suite. And then we also are tracking doors, which is used for system requirements. And then looking at our 3D CAD breakdown, we're pretty much 50% SolidWorks now of our total CAD seats. You can see their Creo is about 36%. CATIA V6 is a little over 13. And like I said, we have one seat of CATIA V5 that's mostly used in our on the manufacturing side. So when it comes to managing your licenses, there's really three things you need to know. What licenses do you have? And I've seen this presented earlier, but you have to know what you have. You need to know how they're being used. How do you know if those licenses are being utilized to their fullest? Are they just sitting installed on a machine? If you have standalone seats, you need some way to track that. If it's getting, whether it's being used or not, you're paying for that seat. So, and then who is actually using your licenses? Is there a specific person or a group of folks who's always using a license, who needs it in a surge? Sometimes we have a few specialty softwares here like SolidWorks Composer. It's not used all the time, but it kind of comes and goes in surges when they're doing work instructions and things like that. So I'm most of my presentation, the rest of my presentation is going to be focused on SolidWorks, as that is the primary CAD software we use here, and that's mostly what I'm over. So before OpenLM, I started with Dynetics mid-2017, and most of the users had standalone licenses at the time. We didn't have any way to track usage, and we were just adding licenses as new users came on board. so we realized we needed to make a change there. So after OpenLM, after I started, we started pushing people to network. We had users complaining, you know, I'm not going to be able to have a license. So we started looking at the way we needed to manage this. We looked at Flexera because SolidWorks utilizes the FlexLM license manager. So we looked at Flexera. They have a tracking software, but it's really expensive. And so we had actually looked at building us a homegrown solution, just using the log file and, you know, querying that. And then I got to doing a little research and I found OpenLM, and the price point was right on target. It was like, it was basically low entry to get in, especially compared to Flexera. And so we trialed it for a little bit, and we noticed it was going to work out really well for us. So we pulled the trigger on it. The biggest thing for us here is actually being able to visualize the usage in heat maps. I mean, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. The heat maps just really gives you a really good instant picture of how hot the usage is, how active your users are pulling from that pool, et cetera. So you can actually pull user reports. We've had no problem justifying additional licenses with the output from OpenLM when we need them. Here's a little bit of some of the stuff we use for usage visualization. This is a usage chart you can get, but what really sells it is the heat map right here. You can instantly see how hot your licenses are. This is a seat of Cameo, so it's not being utilized that much. You see a couple of times here where it's got pretty hot, but that's just kind of an example to show that right there. So get back to SolidWorks, our licensing goals were to reduce our license costs, to maximize our license usage. We wanted to ensure that the SolidWorks licenses we had were being almost completely used before we added additional licenses. And you got to weigh that with your denials and stuff like that. But you need these metrics to be able to make these decisions and spend this money. And as I mentioned, when I started Dynetics, they had already kind of started moving some users to network. But I come in right kind of in the middle of that. So our case study here, I'm just going to look back at 2018. We bought OpenLM the end of 2017. So that's as far 2018, first of 2018 is when I have records basically. And then I went to the first of the year in so this is January 1, 2018 to January 1, 2021. I used our VAR renewal for seat counts to get an idea of the seats that we purchased. And I pulled the user counts from OpenLM. I am including our network and standalone seats in this chart. I'm mostly going to focus on the network seats as we ended up transitioning folks to there, but you can see our slopes from 2018 to 2021, we've added some standalone seats as well. And the slopes are actually, you know, fairly close to identical, but look at our unique user count. This unique user count is network only. So we've had a lot of growth right here. We've had almost a 260% increase in unique users from 2018 to 2021. We've increased our network license seat by almost 68%. And we've actually increased our standalone seats by just a little over 84%, but we do require a detailed justification to add standalone seats. And I want to stress that most of our standalone seats now are provisioned in air gap situations in labs that has no network activity. So that's kind of a special case. These seats can't see the network. We have to have standalone seats in there. On our current network, or corporate network, we only have 8 standalone licenses on our corporate network. Everybody else is using network licensing for SolidWorks. And 3 of those 8 are reserved for admin and our PDM task machines to actually create the PDFs and step files and whatnot. but the unique user count is only counting those users who access the network license. So you can see here the significant increase we've had here, but we've only had to increase our count of network licenses by 68%. So I think those numbers kind of speak to themselves, and we wouldn't know this if we weren't tracking our licenses. So looking at those numbers, $1,182,000, that is a very conservative estimate of capital savings that we've realized by just monitoring our license usage for SOLIDWORKS standalone seats in a 3 years since our 2018 renewal. And this is actually only assuming a 50% of the unique user increase we actually have, because we have had some user roll off. We've had some users come on. That unique user count is from 2018 to 2021. We have had folks leave. We've had a lot of folks come on. So this is only using 50% of that user increase, and we've still realized over $1 million in savings. And this is also only procuring SOLIDWORKS standard seats, which is what we usually pull. Sometimes we have professional and premium requested, but most users get by with standard seats. They don't really require those additional modules, and we do have several of those on there. But so that is a very significant increase. I have calculated my return on investment at one time last year, and it was just insane. I mean, it was like, I can't even remember the number now, but it was way over 100% return on investment by just going with OpenLM based on what we have saved in our software. And again, this is only SOLIDWORKS. So also some other things that help manage our network licenses, other than just tracking the usage, there's several things you can do to control your licenses. And that's the network license manager hygiene. So most of the license managers have option files, or they have some mechanism for actually controlling your licenses. And I think this was mentioned in an earlier presentation. You can control access to this to better manage your licenses. You can specify license timeouts. So if a user opens a seat of SOLIDWORKS and pulls it and then just lets it sit there and open, that license actually gets returned back to the pool at a certain time if you have that specified. You can create groups of folks to put in. This makes it easier to manage. You can allow or deny access to users groups. So we have specialty software. I mentioned Composer. We have SOLIDWORKS simulation, SOLIDWORKS flow. Not everybody needs that. So I actually control that in the license file. So only certain people can pull that. It keeps somebody from actually just going and pulling it. Because most of the time when you install SOLIDWORKS by default, that add-in is checked, and when they launch it, they're going to pull that license whether they're using it or not. So this allows you to control that. You can reserve certain licenses for certain users groups and hosts. You can include borrowing, including a time limit on the number that can be borrowed and the length of time that can be borrowed for. I mentioned this in the panel discussion. The COVID really hit us hard because we were kind of unprepared for that. And I ended up having over half of my network seats were borrowed like the second day everybody was teleworking. So I had to get that under control. I did that in the license file. And then OpenLM actually has an extension that will let you control the option file for various license managers right from the OpenLM interface. You don't have to go edit the text file. And that's actually a pretty robust tool. I've actually tested that. So this is what you get with a SOLIDWORKS out of the box file. You get a timeout of SOLIDWORKS for 30 minutes, 1800 seconds. This is our modified file. I actually ended up setting timeouts for basically all of our products. We recently had some issues with DraftSite. People were opening DraftSite and leaving it open. I had to put a timeout in there for that. So you can see in my text file here, I've actually kind of got it a little bit organized. So other people can come in if they need to, if I'm out or something, and they know what's going on. So here's some groups I have set up that lets me be able to allocate these licenses. So like the people who want to use flow simulation, you got to be in this group to be able to pull a flow simulation license. And same thing for Composer, electrical. so on and so forth. And then you can actually reserve certain licenses. You can include, so this is basically reserving this group, reserving the software module for this group, basically. And then once COVID hit, I had to control the borrowing. And so now people have to email me, because I had a few users that would actually just borrow licenses all the time. But once we went into a telework situation, which we still kind of are at this point in time, people have to email and ask me. So I actually track it in here with a comment with their actual request and the date that I added them, just so I can kind of track that. And then I'm including these modules in this. So if you're not in this group, you can't even borrow these licenses. And also wanted to mention here, I reserved Visualize Boost for Render Farm. You can reserve that to a certain machine, because in the SolidWorks License Manager, somebody could just go in there and actually borrow that license as well, even though I'm controlling it down here. So I've just, basically this machine is the only machine that can pull this Visualize Boost, which is, that's where it's installed. So that's where it needs to be. Then you can actually define your borrow time period in hours. So I think I've got that set for like 4 days. And then you actually have a low water limit, which actually limits the number of licenses that can be borrowed or that cannot be borrowed. So say you have, 100 licenses of SolidWorks, and you want to only allow 5 to be borrowed, you set the low water to 95, and it would actually allow 5 of those licenses to be borrowed. And that's basically my presentation. My final thoughts on license management is know what you have and how it's being utilized. You want to organize and manage your licenses, and you want to track license usage and denials. And go ahead and floor up for questions now if we have any.
Thank you, Brian, so much. We actually have a question. There are 2 of them. What was the return of investment using OpenLM?
Pardon, say that again, please. Oh, the return of investment.
Yeah.
I did not calculate it. I was going to calculate it here. I believe, I can't recall off the top of my head what that return on investment is. I should have included that. And when I saw that mentioned in the poll earlier, I was like, I probably should have calculated that. And I went trying to pull numbers, but I didn't get them all. But I think it's actually on y'all's website, actually. I want to say it was like 150%, if not higher, return on investment. It was insane.
Right.
But I can figure that out, and I can get that out for us to answer after this is over.
Okay. Hey, thank you. So the next question is a general one. How many engineers are there in your company?
Well, I know for mechanical, I think we're right now hovering probably around 350 mechanical engineers that pull licenses for 3D CAD. I mean, we have a lot of electricals and systems engineers. So when we talk engineering, it's like what specific discipline are you talking about? But tracking this CAD is, I think we probably have about 350. I know for OpenLM, we're actually provisioned for 600 users. But like I say, we have like 10 different vendor daemons we're tracking across. So all of those don't pull 3D CAD. So I would say about 350 mechanicals that pull right now.
Okay. Okay, there are no more questions. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, Brian.
Maybe yeah. I can ask one question. Something that we talking with license managers, and they get a lot of objections from the engineers. No, why do you take this fit for me? I wanted to use this license. And in many cases, even we see like they treat the license as a status of symbol. like a symbol of status. Okay, no, I'm like a team leader and I need this license, even though you don't really use it. So how did you deal with this objections?
It was, you've got to have management buy-in for sure to come in and do something like that. And so we definitely, our management supported us in this. And it was kind of like, this is just the way it's going to be done. And it after a couple of weeks and people saw they were going to be able to get their licenses and have them. I mean, we still had a few users that we do have some users that do some reverse engineering that go out on site. So they need standalone licenses, things like that. But we require justification to get a standalone license, because that's basically an asset we're going to buy that nobody else has access to, whether you're using it or not. And it's just, those are, you know, it's just not that cost effective now. So now almost it's not a deal, but when we were moving it, there was a lot of people that were hanging on to them for dear life. Like, you can't take my license from me. I won't be able to work. But it's kind of, nobody likes change.
Yes.
So, but you got to have management buy-in at the top to be able to do something like this. And as more and more people in the company see this, we've had other people that use other, like the Cameo, for instance. We just added that within the last 2 months, probably. We have folks that go to go to our IT department, and they're like, "Hey, I need to know how my licenses are being used," or they want to be able to track their licenses, and they send them to me, and you know, we'll get a vendor daemon for them. If I think we had one available for the Cameo on our license, but the IT department knows it. They like it. They like the way we can justify, you know, because our IT department, you know, it's all of our CAD software is corporate resources under the IT budget. So they really like that we can track this as well. And then we can really justify that when we say we need licenses, we can show them we need licenses. Yes. We can pull up denial reports and heat maps. So
I have another question. You mentioned that you are also using monitoring IBM doors. I believe this is something IBM doors, rational doors. It's a development license, as far as I know.
It's to manage system requirements. And it's used on the government side a lot. I know like 3D Experience has a module for that as well. But most of the folks around here where I work, you know, it's government contractors, there's aerospace. Most of the folks around here use doors, and it's just to track engineering requirements, basically.
I see. Okay. Thank you. Very interesting, I must say. It's very impressive, the work you did. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Brian? I don't see any other question in the Q&A box. So I guess, thank you, Brian, very much for the insights.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I would like to thank all the speakers, and I would like to invite OpenLM co-founder and CEO of Oren Gabay to share his insight about today's event. So please, Oren.
Thank you very much. So first, I would like to thank everyone for being with us, especially all the people that spent time and efforts to present today, Stefan, Jonas, Daniel. Thank you very much. That was amazingly impressive what you created. It's the second time I see it, the first time in Secoptena conference. And it's always impressive what you did with the reports, and very impressive. Evan, thank you very much for the long cooperation. Brian, very impressive. Thank you. And special thanks to our marketing team led by Veronica for all the efforts arranging this conference. I think that what I would like to see and to stand up is, like, we don't have this recognition. There was a question here. What's the review of Gartner of your company? And I'm saying there is no review because they never did one. And I think this is the time for Gartner and other analysts to recognize that there is something viable. It's a whole community. It's the engineering, so it's a niche. It's not Microsoft Office and Adobe and so on. It's a niche, so, and we need to push these companies to recognize that there is a community here, and we are doing a very important work, and it should be recognized. And I'm looking forward to working with you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Oren. Thank you very much. I want to outline the fact that the recording will be posted on our webpage, also on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel because we post there all our webinars and workshops and tutorials. So there are so many people who ask me about if there will be the recording. So yes, you'll find them on our website, on YouTube, on our social media. So I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to thank Secoptena representatives. And I would like to thank, special thanks to Jonas and to Stefan. Thank you very much, Daniel from BorgWarner. Thank you so much, Evan from ServiceNow. And thank you very much, Brian from Dynetics. And I would like also to thank my colleagues from OpenLM, Chaim and Branislav for joining this event and for sharing their experiences. So I wish you a wonderful evening or a great day, and join us next year. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.